I was trying to figure out like what this is like the first time I've seen you with a shirt on for this show. So like I'm trying to
Oh,
figure out like what's the deal. Like I know you're a fashionable guy, so like you've got and it's always got a Nissan logo on it or a supporting related shirt, but it's
yeah.
never with a collar. So you're kind of confusing me. You're scaring me, bro. What's with the collar? You know?
Uh, well, these were like an employee-only jacket.
Oh, it's a
That
jacket.
yeah. Hold on. See, it's
Ah,
it was. You know where I got this from? Is
where'd you get it?
a friend of a friend out of the Arizona test track.
Oh,
And he was like, yeah, he was like retiring or something. And he was just like, dude, I got a bunch of shirts and jackets. And so this is what they rock out there from what I was told. And he just like, he goes, yeah, why don't I just send you this stuff? And he goes, it's just collecting dust and I'm never going to wear it. And it didn't fit him. I was like, all right, we're done, man. I'll take a hand
nice.
me down any day.
Yeah.
I was like, especially with the logo. I was like, it's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To me, it looked
But,
like a button down, like an actual like going out shirt. But
no, I'm a
no,
Velcro
no.
man. And
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear
uh,
it. Let's hear the Velcro.
let's go. That's how you know quality.
Ah!
My wallet, same thing. That's it. Ladies, that's how you know the money's in the house. You hear
Yeah.
that, ladies? Yeah, that's when you know you got a man with dollars in his pockets. So,
That's how you
yeah.
know when you take a Velcro wallet to a casino. It's the sound of your addiction. Just like.
That is, it's the sound of rock bottom. That's what that is. Oh, that's rough. That
Oh,
is rough. Anyway,
heck yeah.
so we are on. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. What number we rocking, Mike? Is this 40? I know we're in our flirty 40s at this point. What number
Flirty
are we on?
40s. So we went from 30s to flirty 40s. I like that.
30s,
Uh,
flirty 40s.
we are in 42, episode 42.
42. Damn. So yeah, they're
Yeah.
stacking up, man. So let's talk about what we got coming down the pipeline. A lot of stuff's been happening as we knew it would, coming right out of the first of 2022. Hit him, Mike. What do we got coming on in this episode?
Let's go for it, man. All right, on this episode, we're going to talk about Nissan's latest campaign that is leading up to Super Bowl Sunday happening here very, very soon. We're going to cover a very busy weekend for Nissan motorsports wise. Many things happening, so we're going to cover that. And later, we're going to speak with one of our friends and one of our favorite 300ZX Z32 gurus, Bernie Bilski, a good
Yeah.
friend of ours on the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Let's jump into it, man.
Still loving that song. It's
Yeah.
my alarm clock when I wake up. It's what I play to go to bed. It's what I make love to. I mean, it's
You just slow down the tempo if you have to. You turn down the lights and turn it into
I'm gonna play it at my funeral to violins or
you,
something. It's just like
send it out and get it. What
a
was
harp.
that? Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not even a harp. It just one lone didgeridoo
Oh
solo in the
man,
back.
a didgeridoo of the podcast song there. That'd be kind of that would be like the like wow. That's it. Put a pin in it. We're
Yeah.
done. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
again, for those that don't know, we have we almost changed the entire design of this podcast. A didgeridoo was almost in our future when we first started all
Well, we
this
wanted
because we were
something
just.
abstract.
I wanted something weird because I'm
Yeah,
just weird. So yeah,
I
abstract.
understand.
Don't try to
Abstract.
church it up, son.
Yeah. We're gonna get really weird with it. Is what we wanted
We're
to
gonna
do.
get
Yeah.
real weird, real weird. All right, so let's we've got a lot to kind of cover today. Like I said, we're kind of shortening our news a little bit today. Normally, we'd be a little fat with it. Little bit of news, heavy motorsports, and boom, we're going to be talking to one of our good friends, Mr. Bernie Bilski, aka Ugo Bernie. So we'll have him here on just a moment. He's sitting in the green screen in the green room, eating all the free donuts and all the free liquor. So yeah,
Enjoying all the NFTs, the virtual green room. Yeah, yeah.
all the virtual green rooms. All right, Mike, hit him. You're up first.
Let's go for it. Well, and Miles, I think we're forgetting something, man. We got to go ahead and
Oh,
give out a kanpai.
we do
Typically,
got to get a
I'm
kampai.
sorry, man.
Yeah,
We're excited. Let's go ahead and jump this out. I'll do the honors if that's cool with you.
yeah.
Uh,
Let's do
again,
this.
again, a salute for those who's with us online with the Nissan family. Let us enjoy good health, and for anybody we may have lost along the way, let us be reminded of them often. Think of them. So we say kanpai. Kanpai.
Kampai.
Woo. Mm,
All right.
mm, mm.
Booyakasha.
Boom.
But I mean,
Boom.
before
Boom.
we
Boom.
get into all that, I guess I missed a step here. I wanted to just say, Mike, do you know what the relevance is for today?
Oh,
The date?
yes. Dude, I'm a numbers nerd, dude. Like just like a month ago, we were doing the whole like, what was it? Uh, 12, 22, 21, like the whole numbers. Yes, today is. Would you call it Nissan Day because of the numbers? February 3rd, 2, 3. I saw a few of it on social media. Yeah, dude. Happy Nissan
Nissan.
Day.
I didn't. Ni two, san three. I didn't think you put it together because you typically mix up Japanese and Spanish. But
Go ahead. Yes, you are right.
I'll leave it alone. All right, I'll be nice. But yeah, yeah, pretty cool. Nissan Day. You kind of saw this through a lot of all the media that was out there. Very, very cool. And so yeah, I mean, for those that didn't catch it, kudos. You're
Yeah.
on with us. You're celebrating, and you should be celebrating the right way.
Yes,
So
they can. Go for it. Go for it. And actually, along the way, this is sort of a teaser to it. I think Nissan obviously knows what day it is as well. It's going to lead up to some actual debuts that they've done today as well. So that's kind of a nice little tidbit. It wasn't. It wasn't. There were no such thing as coincidences. So yeah,
it's all matter of fact. All
yeah.
right, so let's see what before we get into that, we let's you know I know you had some news on a personal level. From what I was told, you got a new job, right?
Well, yeah. I interviewed. I started a new job on Monday, so I know. This last week, last week we were supposed to have a show, and just things, life hits you. And that's one of the things. It's
Spiraled
it's a
out of
big
control.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, had
So
my
when you start the Walmart greeter job, or is that
Who
very
told
time
you? Yeah,
consuming?
yeah.
Welcome to
Right.
Walmart. I love you.
Welcome to
All
Walmart.
right.
Yeah.
Just-
Well, yeah, man. I'm saying in the automotive industry. I know I don't say that often, but I mean I'm in the automotive industry, the manufacturing industry.
cool.
Enjoy it. It's a new challenge coming up, so I look forward to it. And
Oh, kudos.
it actually involves some traveling. I might actually find my way some in various places along this year,
You're
both
gonna travel
domestic.
and hit all the La Quintas across the nation. So yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be
By the way, La Quinta is Spanish for right next to Denny's.
I thought you were gonna say Japanese right next to I thought you were gonna but that's pretty good. All right, right
Yeah,
next to
yeah,
Waffle House. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So moving on. Let me see. Me, I haven't really been doing too much. Been buying more tools, buying more crap that I don't need. I
Well,
bought.
that's
I bought a project. I didn't buy a project car. I bought another parts car.
that was
So
the thing. You told me that yesterday. I said, "Stop everything. I'm going to wait." Like it. This is why we have the show. Because tell me about it. What's going on? Another truck? This is like your third truck. Don't tell the wife, right? Is that what it is?
whoa, whoa, whoa! Slow your roll, homie. Don't
Okay.
snitches get stitches. All
Okay.
right. Just so the way this happens is, I didn't buy another car to restore. I bought another car to take apart for parts.
Mm.
So that's what it is. Currently,
It's
right now, the lineup is a Frontier. That's the daily beater. Got two Z32s that I absolutely love. one crazy, one mild, one wild. I've got the Datsun 620 that I took a VG30. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get all that component working, but a VG30 powered 620 that I have up on the Facebook groups, and people can check out how we're doing with that. And then I
Yeah.
have another 620 that's sitting at my place out in New Mexico that you and I picked up on one of our episodes, early episodes of the
Yep.
Nissan podcast. And then I bought a parts car, 620. So I'm going to basically rip that car all apart for parts. So if you are in the Texas area and you want to get dirty and you need some 620 parts, hit up a brother because I might have some stuff. So we'll go from
I-
there. But
Is
yeah,
it
the
a
addiction runs strong. So yeah,
yeah? Is it a roller shell or is there an engine and transmission in it? What's the
I
story?
don't,
It was.
I don't
It's one of the.
differentiate.
It's one of these blind sales cash
I do
sight
the blind
unseen.
sales. I do. I
Yeah.
throw my money at stuff sometimes, and I'm like, all right, am I gonna get screwed on this one? How we doing? How we looking? But yeah. Anyway, that's just what I got going on in my life right now. But let's start. Before we kind of move on and start going into news and motorsports today, let's go ahead and take a moment to do some crowd work. We haven't done
Uh,
that.
let's go
Yes.
for it.
Well, we got a lot of people on with us today. So I want to give kudos to everybody for jumping in tonight, having a good time with us. We got some
Yeah.
of the regulars. We've got Diane Cray Wesley on with us tonight. And for those that don't
Hey.
know, for those that don't know her famous Nissan heritage, she's actually Mary from the original Ken and Mary
Skyline commercials. Yeah.
Skyline commercials that were so historic in the 70s. We had her on for an episode a long time ago. We need to get her on now that we've got video. So we'll get her on and see if we can get her live and have her
Good
come back
idea.
on and tell some more great stories. But we had a good time with her. And we've got Ion. We've got John, Mr. Papa Giorgio. He's on with us tonight. Got Dennis Whittakin coming out of Austin Z Club. I haven't seen him in a hot minute. Mike Lindahl, haven't seen him in a hot minute. Thanks for joining up tonight.
Thanks,
And
guys.
there's a few other guys sitting in the background. Mr. Christopher Worlds, he comes on and off with us. Mr.
Yep.
Orlando Nunez. All right, that's enough of our crowd work. We love you guys. Thank you
Thanks.
again for supporting the
Thanks for
episode.
being here with
And
us.
thanks for
Yeah.
being here with us. You're going to make it fun. We are going to have a good time tonight. All right, first. Get my drink. And you are up, man. Let's
Yeah.
get some news.
Let's go ahead and start up with some Nissan news. All right, so the article I have today, I'm really social media is blowing up with it over here over the last 3 days, and I went ahead and just share it with you here on the show. Nissan has released a series of YouTube, well, you call it YouTube videos, but there's a commercial, 60-second commercial, in addition to 2 trailers leading to the commercial. Like, when do you have trailers that lead into a commercial? It's only kind of like this. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not a trailer for a movie. This is a 30-second. No, actually, it was a 60-second trailer for a 60-second commercial. Like, that's how heavily Nissan's investing into these promotions. So the promotion itself, though,
they're getting pretty hard with it. Yeah.
yeah, well, it is what it is because they are leading up into the whole Super Bowl campaign. Nissan has bought a 60-second time slot at a minimum. We don't know. There might be multiple commercials.
Well, let's talk about the history of the Nissan Super Bowl commercials. I mean, we had the amazing one that we just actually talked about like 2 episodes back,
Yep.
where we talked about and then the turbos kick in the Z32 one. That was
Yep.
one of the greatest ones that they ever did. And then the Cats in the Cradle, which to this day I can't watch without getting a little teary-eyed. That was also a classic Super Bowl one. Not too bad.
It was.
So this one is going to be, I think it's going to be up there in the ranks. It's going to definitely, it might knock off the top 3, man. It might hit it. So anyway, tell us about it. Drop it.
All right, so we did tease a little bit about it at the last episode. Nissan has said that this upcoming campaign, or this ongoing campaign right now, is what they call a comedy thriller. This episode, now that it's dropped, we do see the big names of actors and actresses that are in the commercials. Names such as Eugene Levy, which I think is sort of the main character that you see throughout the commercials and the trailers. Dania Gurira, may have got that
You
wrong,
butchered
but
that one.
let's
Yeah,
go
you
for it.
really
I want to
butchered
keep
that one.
going. I'm going to power through that one. Yeah.
Keep going, keep going.
hurry,
Just keep
hurry.
walking through it.
The
Your
next one.
Spanish and your Japanese are on equal platforms. Let's go. Come
Let's go
on.
for it. Next one, Dave Bautista. I know that one. There's Catherine O'Hara and Brie Larson, of course, who is the what you call brand ambassador for Nissan. Can't forget her. She is definitely in these commercials as well. I've actually going to share my screen for a moment, and we'll go ahead and run these in the background, which was kind of crazy though. So there were two trailers. First one was 30 seconds. Second one was 30 seconds. I mean, by and large, these all three commercials center around the new Z car. It's going to be the big thing happening here during Super Bowl Sunday. So of course you see high revving. You got, of course, the manual transmission explosions in the background. I know we don't have sound on this one though, but you get the audio clip of the engine revving. That's the first one. We got another one, which second. Go ahead.
But I think we added our own spin on something the other night, and some of you caught it. So if you've been following the page, and
Yeah,
it kind of went it went a lot farther than we thought it was going to go.
it was.
But Mike, I'll let you drop it if you got it. Let me see here.
Let me. If you've got it here, let me.
But
I'm
yeah, I had a little bit of time, and
talk
Eugene
about it.
Levy
Yeah,
plays the new character. It's a transformation vehicle, which is ultimately what's happening there, and he becomes Dragon while he's operating the new Z. And anyway, I just kind of thought it'd be pretty funny to kind of take it and just do like a reface app and kind of play around with it. And I spent a good amount of time trying to find the perfect layout of what I wanted to kind of just have some fun with. And yeah, Mike, go ahead and drop that.
let's go for it. Now, before as it's, I guess you could say it's loading right now, but as I'm actually very, very impressed with your skills on this because I thought it was literally a. I literally thought it was a Nissan like promotion when I saw it, and I was like, "You really took me by surprise, man!" So I actually really enjoyed it. Can you see that? There you go.
Yeah, if you listen to it online, it's pretty good. Really, we're doing this.
Got the whole Roxbury boys going on here. You've got Eugene
Yeah.
Levy doing the nod, which it's so
Yeah,
like
well, you
stylish.
got it. Yeah, you got to do it. Anyway, it came out pretty good, and a lot of our friends at throughout the Nissan world thought it was pretty hilarious. Yeah, my reface skills are getting up there, as you can see in my background. So yeah, one of my favorites. This is going to be hanging above the garage wall one of these days. So um, yeah. So again, the release came out. Now there was some other news that kind of made its way down the pipeline. If I remember, there was also a contest for the new Z that's out right now.
This
Did you
came
catch
out
one of
in,
them?
yes, it
Yeah.
does. It came out in pair. It came out at the same time as these trailers. So, by the way, the trailers, the pair of them came out 3 days ago. Looking at the number of views, episode the first trailer got 4.7 million views. Second trailer got 9.7 million views. That's a huge spread. So a lot of you guys that are hopefully watching this show with us, go back. There are two trailers. Obviously, there's a large group of people that's missing one of the two trailers. And then this morning was the full commercial with the entire cast going from there. Now, in tandem with that was the sweepstakes. This was the promotion. Nissan is actually having a sweepstakes to give away a 2023 Nissan Z car. You enter online, and I'll go ahead and share my screen on this. We're going to have the link to this in the show notes, so feel free to look through them. This contest is happening from now until February 15th. So you have what is it? Just about 2 weeks from now still to enter. They're calling this the Thrill Driver. One drive changes everything. Win a chance for to win a 2023 Z car. There you go, right here. I've done my part already.
I've
Honestly,
I
Yeah.
already put in. I put in all my pseudo names. I put in all my prison names, my gang names. So yeah, I'm rocking pretty hard to try to snatch up one of these. We'll see how it goes. So
I am when it comes to contests and sweepstakes like this, man. I'm a pessimist, man. I typically don't enter anything, but it's a new Z. I'm like, I don't care. I'm doing it. Yeah, I did
gotta
the
play
same
to
thing.
win,
I was
baby.
the
Gotta
first
play to
one.
win.
You got to
This
play to
is-
win. They got me hook, line, and sinker. I'm doing this one. So uh,
All right. So
now before you
so
go,
yeah, if you get a chance, get on there with that contest and definitely apply. You got
Mhm.
January 30th to February 15th, Super Bowl, when we're going to see a lot of this stuff air. Again, we're going to see that Super Bowl Sunday, February 13th, right?
February 13th is what you call the big game happening. Of course, the
Oh,
football
we can't
game for
call it Super
those
Bowl
who
because they
are.
get paid every time. We'll call
Yeah,
it the
yeah.
Bowl de Super. So
That's that Spanish trying to kick in there. That yeah.
the Bowl de
uh,
Gigante. I know somebody's just going to ruin me
the
for
Gigante
trying to
Bowl.
do a
There you go.
Spanish
Yeah,
name.
yeah,
The Gigante Bowl.
yeah.
All
That's that
right,
South
moving
Texas
on.
in us, man. I hear you. So yes, go to online, enter if you haven't already. You've got 2 weeks to do so. Don't delay. Do it as soon as you can. If any
Yeah.
of you guys win, you owe us a ride.
We get 10%. I get a rim,
Yeah.
so I take that 10%. So, all
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Moving on down the line. Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about motorsports, if that's all right, Mike.
Let's go for it. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the motorsports. What would you call
You're
it?
clicking your
Segment,
little thing.
motorsports segment of Nissan Nerd Podcast.
All right.
Let's
Give
go
me the
for it.
steering wheel here, Mike. So,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, a lot's been happening. Super GT has been is building up to be a really big year for Nissan. They with as soon as Super GT was over, Nissan made a rather large statement and a change that the GTR was ultimately going to be pulled from the 500 class, to the best of our knowledge. And we knew, me and Mike kind of knew what was coming down the pipeline. We just had a hunch, and we knew the new Z was potentially in line to be backed for the GT500 class, the GT500 vehicle for Nissan this year. And we were right. With just a few days after that, Nissan started talking about their prototype that we've seen. It's kind of the lighter gray version. That was the one that ultimately hit. And then next thing you know, we started getting the spec cars that started coming around, the GT500 vehicles. Now, the big news that's happened in between our last episode and this episode is Nissan has now announced their drivers for the season. You can find this on the Super GT channel. I think we posted on the Facebook, the Nissan Nerd NNP Facebook page. We'll have that up there too as well if it's not already up there. But this just came out here before the end of last month. So they are fielding, from what we can tell, in the 500 class, 4 vehicles. So we're going to be doing some driver change ups, but for the most part, it looks very impressive. They've got a lot of talent that's going to be going out there. It looks like this is one of those years the Nissan's going to be backing up the motorsports area, at least for the Super GT class, and we're pretty excited about it. The other big news, for those that don't know, is the dates for Super GT have now been released. That just came out here
Mm.
recently. So our first date. Our first race will actually be in April. So April 16th, April 16th, April 17th, our round one will be at Okayama International. We, of course, like we always do, we will try to give you the live links. If we have the English speaking ones, we'll try to give it to you. If we've got the Japanese ones, best of luck, homie. But we'll try to give you the day 2 or day 3. Sometimes we get the English dubbed over ones, and then we'll definitely let you know. But yeah, very cool stuff that's kind of coming down the pipeline. There was also some recent news that came in as Nissan was testing their new Z. They did have a little bit of a mishap. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to catch that, but let me show you this, Mike. I didn't know if
Hmm.
you caught wind of this one.
I I don't know any details about it. It did surprise me.
But yeah, give me that steering wheel. So GT 500 during some of the testing ended up just catching a little bit of fire. Nothing that won't buff out. But what's crazy about this, it caught fire, and some people are using that as the principal point to kind of talk about for this vehicle. But what people aren't talking about, it was recognized as one of the fastest cars during testing so far. So with that
Yeah.
in place, there is a lot of opportunity for a lot of success this year. So keep it up. We'll definitely keep you updated here. So, continue to check on everything that we've got for Nissan Nerd Barbecue. Nissan Nerd Barbecue. Nissan, all right. For I saw a note here. So the Nissan Nerd page will keep you updated on what's happening. I saw Dennis's note. He goes Z barbecue. It was just a small fire. So,
By the
that's
way,
good.
let's take a
And it,
moment. If it's okay with you, Miles, let's take a moment and talk to you guys here online as well. Yes, Dennis is absolutely right. Z barbecue. I saw you got distracted on that one. That was cool. That was funny. That flowed right in.
it
That was
was
awesome.
totally unintentional. My apologies. So
Oh yeah, yeah. We got
no,
here. Jamie is
and,
of course
and
saying, "Wow." I would assume that's having to do with either that either in regards to the Z being the fastest on track, or obviously the fire. That I
and
would say it
Dennis
pertains
is
to both.
Dennis just dropped a note and he goes, they've forgotten to tighten the rubber fuel lines near the fuel pressure regulator like the Z32, and whoosh. But you know what? It's
It is
it's
winter.
funny.
Yeah.
On twinturbo.net, one of the things that used to come up at the very top of it right around Christmas time, it was like always, "'Tis the
Yeah.
season for fuel leaks." And every year I'd always go out there. I was like, "Oh crap." It was around Thanksgiving. I'd be out there. Everything got a half turn, and
Yeah.
it's sure enough, to this day I still remember that. It's kind of funny because we're going to be talking a lot about forums, twinturbo.net, where we kind of started here, and then of course where we met our one of our guests that we're going to be having on here today. So,
Absolutely. All right. Last one here,
alrighty.
though. For now, Sean Buck says, "Yeah, win races or cook s'mores. Which one do you? Which one do? I like that one.
I'll
Yeah.
take the win races. Formula E, Mike. We've got one race in the bag, right?
Yeah, season 8 of Formula E just kicked off this last weekend. Nissan EDAM's team is back. They've got a whole season ahead of us, so we've got a lot to look forward. We are back with our coverage of Formula E. So yeah, if it's cool with you, I'm going to go ahead and get right into that. I
Boom.
do have the video here. I'm going to run this in the background. Let's show it here. So it was lights out here, January 28th and 29th. This last weekend, it was a double header for round 1 and round 2 for Formula E. Everybody had a major case of diarrhea because that's where we were. We were in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia, the first track for this event.
Go on.
Very, very exciting though. As a race, just being a race fan in general. Getting into the Nissan results, it wasn't too eventful for the Nissan team. I just put it on pause for a second just to kind of show you where we were at that moment. We have our two drivers, Sebastian Buemi and Maximilian Gunther, the new driver who is just taken over for Oliver Rowland for this season. You can see here we were at Buemi. Where is he at? 20th at this case, just at lights out, you might
Check
say.
out the big brain on Brad.
All right, go ahead.
We had
Anyway.
Maximilian Gunther here in round 1, probably as high as 7th here in round 1. I'm going to keep on pressing this one here though, but yeah, Buemi qualified 17th. Qualified 21st, finished 17th. Maximilian Gunther qualified 9th, finished 12th. Overall, they were about 30 to 40 seconds behind the leader here in round 1. Getting into round 2, the following
All
night.
right.
What's up?
Give me something good, Mike. Give me something
I
good.
know. Honestly, man,
It's round
yeah.
one. That's round
Well,
one. You're not selling it at all.
Well, I know. Well, I'll tell you
That
what.
sounds
Round
like a
2
lot of
was
loss
better.
to me. All right, give me round 2. What's
Round
going
2
on with round
was better though. Qualifying, Buemi 15th, finished 13th. Gunther qualified 14th and ended in 14th. However, the good news, that may not sound like good news, they were
I was gonna say.
both cars were only 9 seconds behind the leader. So when you think about the pace of the entire race, they were not very far behind. You could tell that it was a
Okay.
very dense grid, or a very dense last lap.
I see your mouth moving, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking points. What? Talk to me about
Well,
points. Where we at?
Well, so the Formula E, the way the points stand.
See what
See,
this is
yeah,
a
what
this is a
happened
see,
was-
see what had happened was. All right, how are we doing on
Sadly-
points? Round one and round two.
Sadly, because none of the drivers qualified P10 or lower, Nissan did not have any points acquired here for this first round one and two this last weekend. But we are just getting started. We do have. You got the soundboard on that one.
I did. I had it up. I already knew because I did my own research, Mister.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Now,
Mm.
of course, being optimistic, this is just the start of the season. We've got a brand new driver. I mean, you got to really account for that. And then we're just getting started, though. Now, let's look into round three. Round three happens February 12th and is in Mexico City. We're just about a week and a half. Yes, I was hoping for that clip. Yes, thank you,
All right,
thank you.
Go ahead.
Round three is in Mexico City, happening February 12th. This is another street track. They call it the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. This is the 6th time that this street track has been featured in Formula E. So the drivers, by and large, aren't a stranger to the track. So hopefully that is a good thing, being familiar with this track. This is actually one of the fastest tracks on the roster. And tidbit, this is actually the highest elevation track in the entire season. So it's kind of there's some nerd statistics for you for this upcoming round here. And
Now,
round three,
one
season
thing I
8.
wanted to kind of talk about now, it's one of the fastest tracks on the roster, but also there's some changes that are happening within Formula E. Now, you and I were kind of talking offline about this. Now, the cars are getting faster.
Yes. So a big change for
I mean,
the Formula
it seems
E
like a natural
league.
progression, but
Of course.
sometimes like an F1, we see where they're cutting things back, they're bringing in safety protocols and so forth. But in Formula E, it looks like it's
Mhm.
they're taking the seatbelts off.
Yeah, no more seatbelts. No more
Let's party.
seatbelts.
No more seatbelts. Let's do this. All right.
Right. Now,
But no, I mean
so-
the cars have gotten faster, and you and I were definitely nerding out about it. But talk. I'll
Yep.
let you.
2022 what is a new era, if you will, for Formula E. This is the introduction. What we saw here in rounds 1 and 2 are the new Gen 3 cars. Big changes. Cars have gotten smaller, lighter, more powerful. Some major numbers that you might think about is that the horsepower output went from 600 to 800 horsepower. Huge increase in performance. As a result, in addition to being lighter, these cars are 5 to 7 seconds quicker per lap. That is a huge difference compared. I mean, you know how drivers get, you're competing for every tenth of a second, if you will, and you're only getting 1 or 2 tenths. This is a full 5 to 7 seconds faster per lap, which is a huge leap in the world of Formula E. Also, because of these more powerful engines, you're seeing a more entertaining race as well. You've got more acceleration. Give you an example. This last weekend here, Formula E had 65 overtakes and 6 lead changes. Now that's an entertaining race. I think you don't really see that happening too much in Formula E, or sorry, Formula One. I mean, not to discount it. I love Formula One, but 6 different lead changes in a single race, like that's impressive.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like there for those that haven't watched it, and we always have people when we kind of talk about Formula E. Some of them snicker, some of them haven't given it the nod of true racing yet. But honestly, I
Yes.
mean, when you start looking at the cockpit footage and the overtakes and everything that's kind of happening on that track at one given time, and then it's compressed, and then the rounds are back to back. I mean, it's nothing else is kind of comparing to that. Once you just understand the stresses that are involved. So for those that
Yeah.
don't know, just try to get on and check out the racing. And then I don't know, man, I'm still excited about the rumor that maybe Formula E might be followed with Netflix. I don't know.
That
I'm still excited.
you,
So
I would be too, man, because I mean, I don't think Formula One's going anywhere. Let's just say that first. But Formula E is definitely growing at a very fast pace. And like we've shown with these examples with Netflix and Formula One, Formula E could kind of be on that same fast track to being more and more popular. So
yeah,
I think if you stay
yeah.
hopeful, I'll be hopeful with you on that one.
Well, Dennis Whitting just dropped a pretty good one. He goes, Formula E haters are like new Z haters. They hate us because they ain't us. So, or they hate them because they ain't them. But yeah, it's the same thing. But yeah, good,
Yes, yes.
very, very good quote. Yeah, good job, sir.
Now, I do want to mention one thing before we get on to the next segment here.
Yeah,
Regarding Formula E, we just talked about how these cars have gotten faster, lighter, more competitive, more entertaining. And what there's actually a really good article that came out through motorsport.com talking about this, is that these cars have gotten faster, but the tracks haven't changed. They haven't really accommodated this 25% boost in power. You know, you've got these cars that are
yeah.
nearing, now their new top speed is getting closer to 200 miles per hour, yet these tracks haven't gotten bigger. There's not enough space to really take advantage of this new power and to get new top speeds, etc. On that one. So I'll give you an example. There's a track in Paris during Formula E that's only 1.2 miles long. I mean, that's got to change if we really want to take advantage of what these cars can now do. We A lot of these track presidents are looking into making revisions, making them larger, making them wider. Even these tracks that are wider.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like it sounds like we need to add a straightaway per. So we'll see how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
goes. But yeah, he goes, but you know, as it is right now, I mean, we've talked about this, Mike, before. There is a lot of contact that's happening in these races. I mean, we're seeing a lot of rubbing is racing scenarios that are going on between this.
They do
So it's
they
just
do
like,
rubbing. They do some rubbing, don't they? Yes, they do. Yeah.
but yeah, very
Uh,
cool, man. Very good input. I did want to kind of talk about. I know you had the article on this one. That the IMSA 24 Hours of Daytona that just went down.
yep.
Did you want to talk about it?
If you've got some information, you jump into it, and
No, go
I'll
for it. You do it. No, knock it out. Because you were leading it out. You're my motorsports man tonight. I'm really proud of you. Go on.
Let's go for it. All right, so this is really just a small tidbit of information, guys. The IMSA 24 Hours of Daytona just happened this past weekend. From a top level view, you didn't really see Nissan involved. However, what you need to know is that there are, in this case, there were 9 entries of LMP3 cars that were powered by Nissan. There were 2 chassis, 2 manufacturers that were essentially powered by Nissan, and that was and I'm probably going to butcher this one too. You've got the Leisure JS P320 and
Mhm.
the Duquin DO8
Perfect.
entries. Yeah, sure, nailed it, right? Yeah.
Go on.
I've got a quick picture. You know, we talked about it last year as well. These
Yeah.
cars. Oh man, they look they look
Everybody, all these
sexy,
guys
so.
are rocking VK56
Yep.
engines. For those that don't know, Titan Armada here, U.S. stateside.
Yep.
That's ultimately what they're rocking. I'm assuming major changes, sleeve, probably displaced, punched out, God knows. But
Yep.
yeah, very cool to just see the power plant still being out there in some of these cars.
Yep.
Very cool. So
The entire LMP3 field, every LMP3 entry
yeah,
was powered by Nissan, which is very impressive. Again, 9 entries. And overall, the fastest was placed 13th. And that's when you're competing against 4 other, well, at least 2 classes that are essentially greater, the LMP2 and the prototype class. So I still think overall is an impressive thing for this class and for Nissan. You don't really hear much, but that's what this podcast is for, just to give them some credit. So
Yeah, and
credit to
I
Nissan.
wanted to say that. So, I mean, if anything you learn from the takeaway tonight, folks, is honestly start stealing Titan engines. I mean, that's what it is. Put them up on jack stands. Do the ghetto. Put it up on blocks. And take that engine because that's where the power is. I've been saying that for years. VK56 is a pretty strong power plant, but like I said, you're not going to get it till you get out there and start getting those engines out. So start harnessing those engines. Start stealing those Titan engines. Get out there, do it. So,
Awesome. By the way, for you guys online, before we get into the new segment here, we've had a few guys. Dennis provided us with a link. I can't click on it at the moment. From Nismo website, Nismo Japan website, talking about these engines for the racing. I'll be sure to put it in the episode notes so that we can all access it. So.
now I'll put it right here, baby. I got you right here. And Dennis, because I love you so much and I've known you for as long as I have, I'm going to get 2 seconds and I'm going to bring up this page just so we can talk about what you want to talk about. So give me 1 second.
See, that's what we are. We are a people's podcast. That's what it's all about, right?
We're people's podcast. All right. Steering wheel, give me.
Gimme. There you go.
See, that's what I love about Dennis. He's a nerd.
Yes.
Just like us. Oh my God. So there you go. There's the specs for the LMP3. Dennis, love you as always. I miss him. I'm glad he's back on with us. So, all right.
Yes.
Moving down the pipeline. Next motorsports that we want to kind of talk about, 12 Hours of Sebring. We kind of talk about that a lot. We'll try to give you some details if there's anything Nissan or Infinity related from that. I seriously doubt we'll see anything Datsun related. But again, March 19th, we'll let you know what's coming down the pipeline for that.
Sure thing.
So now is the big time. We got to talk about our special guest. So, we've had a gentleman that both you and I have known for many, many years. One of my favorite people to talk to when I'm out at a Z event and I happen to kind of catch him. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on one of my good friends here, Bernie, aka Hugo Bernie, Bilski. And let's go ahead and bring him on. I think he's sitting in the green room, partaking in our
free beverages on the side
our
there. Yeah.
Costco platter meats and cheeses and fine wines, fine box wine.
I'm accustomed to Dasani, and and really, let's be clear. Poland Spring is my brand, so
I'm all about that import. So,
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah.
Bernie, I got something for you. Hold up. Whoa. Oh, I'm taking it off, Bernie. You can hear the Velcro right now, Bernie. So you know it's class. Hold on.
Yeah. Very nice.
What's
Very nice.
up, Dirty? Oh, that's for you right there.
You didn't tell me that I had to wear my t-shirts. Like if it was going to be that kind of party, then
That's it.
could've
I thought
planned
about
ahead.
you, and I was like, I'm gonna represent.
All right.
And that's it right there, homie.
He's been sweating for the first 40 minutes just to do that. For
Yeah.
you.
All right. Yeah.
It is pretty sweaty. Pretty sweaty.
I think I can smell you from here.
Oh,
Maybe that's just Bart on the bear rug that I'm smelling.
We went from Nissan Day to kicking the balls Thursday. Great.
Yeah.
So, Bernie, we've known you for many, many years.
Yep.
We've been talking. I mean, when I first met you, let's be real here. I think I thought you were a woman, which is a weird kind of scenario because of your screen name, right?
No.
And then ultimately, you changed it to Hugo Bernie, right? Early on.
Oh, you're talking the pre. There was a screen name before the screen name.
Yeah.
There was a screen name before the screen name. Yeah.
Yeah. That lasted like a day. So once upon a time, I actually I tried to scroll backwards through TTNet to find my very first post to be like, all right, just how bad is it, And
Yeah.
I was relieved that it wasn't, hey, what are these headlight aimers, or what color should I paint my calipers, or any of the top three that usually hit, right? So
yeah.
it was something about fitting a 94 wing onto a 2+2. It was actually I don't know. I think pretty benign as far as the
So
first.
for those that don't
Nothing.
know,
Yeah.
we were all Z32 or 300ZX fans for we still are to this day,
Yeah.
but ages ago. That's what kind of ultimately found us as a whole. And of course, I'm talking about this twinturbo.net. And for those that don't know, and you're a 300ZX fan, I've just given you a main line of crack, right? So it was the mecca for anything and all things Z32, really. Across the globe, in my opinion, and there was other forums, but the lasting power with this one was just always there. And then that's
Yes.
actually ultimately kind of where I met Bernie and a lot of his Nova clan from those years ago. And Bernie, you've never disappointed, man. Honestly, you've always been the greatest guy to talk to and the greatest insight and wealth of information on your side of the block out there in Virginia. So I wanted to kind of just ask you, it's like, how did you first find the site? And how did you get interested in the Z32?
I'm positive that I found it on a Yahoo search. Just 300ZX something, it was some keyword. It was a blind search. It was absolutely blind. When I bought my Z32, I didn't know anybody with a Z32. I had a friend who was, I don't know, a decade or so older than me, who had owned one new, but I only really was aware of it kind of at a very high level of like, that thing looks great. I mean, it looks like a spaceship and it's from outer space, but I'm 16 and it's totally out of my reach. And I got to a point, I was done with college. I think in about my first year of kind of having a real job, and somewhere before, real life and responsibilities. But wait a minute, like I could buy one of these all of a sudden, right? Or maybe this is within reach. So I had a kind of fortunate conversation with my buddy Mark, and it just sort of set me off into this tangent of like, well, let me look up what is there to know about this car, right? What is, what kind of wheelbase do they come in 4 seats? Do they come in 2 seats? Like all these really fundamental sort of questions. And this was, I think, like 1999, early 2000, somewhere in that timeline, right? And so the car was out of production already, but not by much. And and then I just started seeing them. And then the apartment I was living in, there was one in the parking lot outside, and it was just a white 2+2. It was nothing magical or special about it other than, hey, this is the car. Like this is, it was one that I could stand next to and look at and kind of size up. And
this is it. This is why I brought on this planet.
It was weird. It was like a super throwaway conversation, over AOL Instant Messenger of all things. and
I thought you were going to give a dial-up reference. And I was like, all right,
God, no. But I mean, I wish I had a transcript of it, right? Because it was just, it was this, hey, Mark, what's the deal with these cars? Like, what, you owned one. What was the deal, right? And he gave me some, just a few things that I needed to know, right? And then I set off on, a Yahoo search of what was gonna lead to this path, right? And I stumbled upon the website. Thankfully, I didn't lurk very long. I think I created a screen name right away.
You didn't know better. Is that the thing?
Yeah. So, there's those guys that are like, oh man, I lurked for 10 years, but I wish I'd set up a screen name earlier. Because
there is an entire army of those folks, and then we were talking about, we prepped a little bit last night to kind of just talk about what we wanted to kind of trim down, because we could talk for hours. And for anybody that's been around us in a circle, like at a ZCon or something, they know that conversation is going to go until the daylight hours, because it's just we're in our element and we're going to nerd out. But we were talking about like people's screen names, how there's like an evolution of growing up. Like originally, like You know, I
Everybody
used
starts
the name
out with
last
some.
night, Z, Lady Killer, and it's like, all right, we're gonna drop the Lady Killer because the hairline's receding at this point. So I'm just gonna be like, now I'm Josh Dallas, like
Well, everybody
Yeah.
starts out with something gobbledygooky, right? And then they're like, "Wait a minute, this is really a hassle to type. Like, why do I have like an underscore and a tilde and a something? Like this is annoying, right?" And then
But
and then they trim it
it's
down
like that
to
same thing when you get to high school and it's your freshman year and you're just like, it's all fake. It's everything about you is fake. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
girls probably the fake eyelashes, stuff in the bras. Guys, we're putting a whatever down there. We're wearing.
I don't know what high
We're
school you
wearing
went to, man. I had a
over.
dramatically different experience.
Yeah. I think it's.
But
I-
I mean,
we-
but the point is that I'm trying to make, beyond embarrassing myself, was the fact that there was an evolution there of not only the personas, the form as well, and that's what I wanted to kind of get into next. I mean, you evolved pretty quickly, and like I said, I'm guilty of being a lurker, and I've kind of had a chance to kind of see all these folks and put faces to names slowly over years. And I'll be honest. I mean, you guys kind of got a jump start on me with any of that, and I was a Z32 fanatic. Could barely afford the cars when I first got it, and I would just kind of watch you guys talk about some stuff. And I just said, you know what, if I want to own this car and maintain it, I need to learn what these guys learn. And the beautiful thing about it, you guys were definitely acting on an entire like pay it forward type of mentality. And you were one of those guys that were just what I used to call the TT.net elite, like internally and around the guys. You were just always blowing my mind with your dedication to helping out the community that was on there. It was just for the I know a lot of people said thank you, but collectively I just want to say thank you because honestly I probably wouldn't be at the position where I'm at and the knowledge I'm without guys like you. So
I will accept the thank you, but it's hardly mine to take, right? Like
yeah,
you know
you're
what I
a
mean?
small chop.
Medium pimping at best, right? But, no, look, we all sort of hit that website like we were talking last night, more or less in the same age range. Most of us were in our 20s, plus or minus a couple of years, but and we were all generally, most of the guys seemed to come from like techie backgrounds, like whether it was IT or like telecom or or some even the military guys. Like it was a lot of that, those people that were on the internet and had time in their day to be on the internet, right? Like if you were working a job where you couldn't be in front of a computer, this was long before people had two screens up and acres of real estate to look at, right? It was there's a view on TTNet that lets you flip to like what looks like a spreadsheet, like busy work, right? Like you can, boss mode is the one that had,
yeah, if you didn't have boss mode, and that's like yeah, and
that was the
like
quick
really
flip
cool
between,
features.
that was the quick
with like
flip
hits.
between,
Remember, it was all about the hits.
yeah.
Like you weren't anybody until you had I don't even remember the numbers now, but it was like 99,000 hits or something like that. It was almost like a prehistoric Instagram. Like,
well, but it's reversed. But it's reversed, right? And this is sort of, again, this goes back to sort of the nature of the
and
TTNet
we're
premise,
gonna
right?
nerd out here pretty hard. So
this goes
open it up.
But look, this goes back to the nature of like the TTNet premise, right? Which was we're all trying to help each other with this car, right? And the site was set up by guys that wanted to keep a community going that had been sold out when twinturbo.com got sold. Like when the domain got sold, they didn't want to let the intellectual property and the collective knowledge base that had been accumulated. And this was in 1997 or 8, right? So when TTNet came online, it was in response to the original domain being sold, and basically the guys that were there going, hey, wait a minute, like, we don't want to lose this. We've already got this community and we've got this knowledge that we want to keep together. So they, took the users, then took their write-ups, and they set up a new site, and they wrote a new forum, and they wrote that whole thing from scratch in the interest of preserving it, right, and keeping it going. And so the hits thing is really the opposite of Instagram, right? Because Instagram is like, oh, this is how many likes you have, which is a feedback loop of so many people, gave you a thumbs up, essentially, right? But hits isn't about that at all. It's about how many articles you've read on the site. Every time you click on a link on TTNet, every time you click on on another other person's post, you get another hit, right? It has nothing to do with your popularity or your
correct.
You know what I mean?
It tells everybody how deep you went down the rabbit hole
And how many of these goddamn times you've clicked on it.
How
right?
dedicated you've been to do the research
And
to
so
learn.
So it's an interesting concept, right? Which I think is sort of lost in the modern,
Facebook
influencer, Instagram influencer type, right? It's not about how cool you are. It's about how much you've read, right? So it's like this is how you sort out all the dorks, right? And like, even remember, like, to post in the classified section, it's a requirement for 500 hits, and people are like, well, how do I get 500 hits? I'm like, you just got to keep reading, right? You got
to spend some time.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too,
and that wiped out spams, like that wiped out like spam bots in the
because nobody wanted to dedicate the time to get into it.
Right.
And then,
no bot is going to sit there and click around.
And then at the same time, what did we start doing? We started putting like the green N on people towards the latter years. We started, the green N just meant that you were a noob. And you know what? I'll let Bernie explain what the green N was.
The green N was just that. It was that you were, I forget how many hits it required to lose it, maybe 100 or something. But the point was that it was a two-edged sword, right? Because for one, the honest intention was, this guy's new, be kind, right? So
yeah. It was kind of like seeing those student drivers on the road, exactly. And you're just like, I know you want to pass this fool. I know you want to blow his doors off and just you give him a honk and the bird, but guess what? Be kind. Yeah. The world is chaos,
and so so that was the fun, right? But it also meant that all the you couldn't if you signed up and you set up a screen name, it meant you couldn't disappear in your questions, right? Like, because now that first time you posted, it was like Milo, big old noob next to it, and of course and so it would just draw people's attention. And I think mostly innocuously, right? It wasn't mean-spirited, and it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be elitist in any way about that, right? It was more intended to be, look, we're here to help, right? But so let's identify the people that are actually new, right? And try to shepherd them at least through their first, whatever it was, 100 or 200 clicks, right? So that we didn't just run them clean off the site, right? But it creates some weird realities now where people come back to the site after 20 years and are like, hey, I can't get into my login, so some name that you from a lifetime ago is popping up with a green N next to it going, that guy has lost his virginity a long time ago. I feel like we need another status of just like, decrepit or like a big D next to you or something, right? But
shame, like a shame logo if there ever was one. But kind of going back into it, but I want to talk about the beauty of the forum altogether. There is definitely a loss between what we're seeing in today. Like, and I'll put it this way, like you and I will both meet like brand new Z32 owners that were in their own right, definitely fans of the car,
Mhm.
but they didn't grow up with the same benefit of the hot the hot forum. And for the most part, people kind of think that forums either don't exist because they just didn't grow up in that generation of forums,
Yep.
or they just only think that it's YouTube and Facebook that exist. And then you meet these people and they're just like so proud of everything that they're doing, and they show up like at a car event, or you're like, you know what, I come from an idea of like looking to help the average Z32 owner and just kind of walk them through, like, dude, don't pay $2,000 for some guy to diagnose your stuff. Bring it over to the house. Me and the guys will kind of come over and help you out. But it was always that like pay it forward mentality. But when those guys show up at your house, you're just kind of a little bit like,
hey, pop the hood.
Pop the hood.
Pop the hood.
and they're just so proud, and you're just like, and the cringe factor's there, and you're just like, oh, but I want to kind of talk about that. Like, what is the biggest difference between that you felt, or I would say, how are we poor now as a car community from say 10 years ago when like TT.net and forums in general were just in its heyday versus like say now where we're living through YouTube clicks and Facebook popularity groups.
I think fundamentally, right? We're all goldfish, right? Everybody forgets the question that was asked yesterday, so there's no sense of a collective community sort of holding a knowledge base, right? Somebody might individually know it, or maybe they saw it, or man, the answer is always Google it, but those answers really aren't vetted anymore, right? Like if you subscribe that TTNet and other good forums would kind of take good information and parse it and hold it, right? So you have tech articles that have been written by someone who did the work, that were vetted by other people on the website that said, yeah, I followed it and it worked, right? Or hey, better yet, I followed it and this step is really kind of ambiguous, so we should clean up, like, in this procedure that you're talking about, maybe add a picture or change this wording, or hey, you just have a typo here. You say the red wire, but the truth is it's the green wire with the red stripe. Things like that, right? Can make all the difference in the world. And so, TTNet and Zilvia and other high quality forums would not only would people share information, but the collective of users on there would sanity check that information, right? And they would make sure that the information that was saved was valid, right? Was tested, was practically useful, all of that stuff, right? And it happened very spontaneously in a way, right? But TTNet itself has a tech section and has a Gen Pop section, right? And in Gen Pop, it's a little more free form. It's Nissan news, or this thing or that thing with my car, or I'm thinking about selling it, or I'm thinking about buying. It's sort of an open discussion, right? But in the technical section, the guys that are there, they're looking for help with a specific problem, and there's guys there looking to provide help to a specific problem, right? That's not the place to guess. That's not the place to like spitball ideas necessarily, unless everybody is sort of stumped and it's like, hey, I need just, does anyone have a notion of where to look, right? So forums were much better at highlighting valid and good information and holding it up and setting it aside and saying, here's the link to that, here's the link to that, here's the link to that, right? And as forums fade away or just sort of lost, that knowledge goes away, right? And even on Facebook, if somebody backlinks to a TTNet post, right, that post is good as long as TTNet is up and running. Right now, recent history, Zilvia.net has been up and down for years, right? It's been totally
I love that site. It was
Yeah.
such a great site for the longest time because it did something different than anything else that you would see. I mean, of course, we were extremely Z32 fanatics, but it crossed boundaries
Mhm.
at an early point where
Yep.
you would bring on some of the S12, S13, S14 guys, S15 if they existed, and the Z and pretty much the Z guys, and it just kind of bonded it together. And there was definitely a beauty to that site. And you were saying that it's just down now?
Yeah, the beauty of the site was that it was somewhat cross-platform, but it was all the same spirit, right? It was Nissan sports, and how do we tune these things, and what parts can we cross-platform, and what bits can we use from this to that, and all those, like, hey, it turns out you could use this differential in that car versus, like, that's where all that stuff, like, really was well sorted and well sifted, right? And and that's how you could take an S12 car that really has no official support, and you go, oh, well, it turns out that I can use, the tension rods,
the interchangeability options
right,
and all that stuff.
and nothing official, and it wasn't Nissan official interchangeability.
No.
It was, hey, listen, you realize that you could take this tension rod bracket and this thing from 2 other generations and 2 other platforms, but this will bolt up to this and this to this, and suddenly you have adjustable tension rods for a car that was not supported, right? Anyway,
what was
the point
crazy
being
is like
that
back in the
Sylvia's-
muscle car days, you would have a guy that would just have it all up here, or you'd have to sift through magazines back in those days.
yeah,
But the beautiful thing that changed with our generation and the added benefit of the tech that was involved is there was a collective knowledge that was out there that you could do. And I mean, it's just like you said, it's just I guess what you were building up to is just extremely sad that you could potentially be losing all that wealth of knowledge that's out there.
Sylvia's been down, as best as I can tell, for over a month, right? And it was flake, like, it was the DNS or whatever, it was the database was unreliable for months leading up to it, right? And the basically the conjecture is that it's on a physical machine, and that physical machine is under somebody's desk, and they kicked out the power strip, or it just crashed.
Somebody's cat walked across it and just kind of ultimately that was the end of it.
And you're looking at a site that could easily have been migrated to a cloud, to a cloud storage and to a data center, and for pennies on the dollar. Even if it was static and you couldn't add to it anymore, just the ability to reference all these Google links that are now pointing to absolutely nothing, right? And that's really my fear, right? Is that even as sort of the Facebook takeover continues, right? The forums that are up, are only as good as the next power cycle, right? Or whoever gets tired of, decides they're not writing that check anymore, or they're not buying the new update of whatever forum software is out there, or and we could just lose it.
I feel like we're building up to like a Sarah McLachlan on the arms of an angel type of save this forum mentality. But the reality is, I mean,
it's either that or the Infinity Gauntlet, right?
Yeah.
Like, snap and it's gone. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, the point that I'm trying to make, if you haven't been on your forums and you're old school, and you got a piece of information at some point, pay it forward, or just remember to donate to your forums. I'm just going to take a second out here because I know that tt.net is one of those forums that does take donates, and from time to time I do donate to it to make sure that they know that we care and that we support them. But places like Sylvia.net, I mean, send them an email, tell them, hey man,
listen,
love
that
everything
was
you guys
Sylvia.
doing.
People have the guys that were active on Sylvia, and were even the admins on the site were stuck in a no feedback from the ownership, as far as I understand it, right? That they reached out, they communicated, they emailed, like they smoke signaled, short of some kind of a Frankenstein mob intervention at the doorsteps with flamethrowers, like it didn't get through, right? And so I hope, given that the domain is still up and it just says database error, I hope that there is some back
somebody
behind the
listening.
scenes. Yeah, I hope there's something behind the scenes that can bring it back up, right? And
Power
honestly,
cycle, unplug it and plug it back in.
I just migrate the stupid thing.
Yeah,
right?
Just migration
for
is
God's
what's
sake,
going to save all that stuff. And
if
so if
it
you
does.
are part of a forum or were part of a forum, and I mean a true forum at one time, email those admins and just say, hey man, I still love you guys. Migrate the stuff. Let's not lose it.
Yeah, you're mentioning while we're on the topic of forums too. I was wanting to get this out too, and you're right, man. Just to kind of recap on TT.net as well, is just I really value it. I mean, I've learned a lot through it. I was one of those ghosts for a while. I would just hover around, but I've learned so much. But I think what I like about it so much was how it was genuine, had genuine intentions, and it stayed genuine. I think that mission that TT.net had was true, and it still is. It was honest.
That credit goes all the way back to Damon and Greg, right? They were fundamentally, and they are to this day, but they were users, they were participants, right? And they were willing to take the time and effort, and had the coding skills. You can bash it all you want, but I wrote this from scratch. That's pretty impressive, right?
Pretty impressive.
Especially I wrote it from scratch in and around 97 to get the general get the general framework of this site up, right? So the fact that it came from a genuine interest in promoting this car and promoting a community and camaraderie around owning it and maintaining it and bettering it and all of that stuff, right? And it absolutely took on a life of its own, right?
We were talking about this last night, about the friendships and some of the things that we met, and to this day, like I have really good friends that I've known through college and high school and things like that. But there's a difference between when you can find somebody out there in the ether in another part of the country or another part of the world that shares that same interest in the same model. There's definitely I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do it. I'm not sexualizing. I'm gonna say like brotherhood or sisterhood. I mean, it definitely was just a recognized all right, I got you. And but when we first met, and that's the thing, TT.net would have these occasional meetups through Zeke conventions, and we would, it's and don't get me wrong,
we would piggyback, and still do, right? It would, when the convention was happening, they would throw a look at the calendar and say, okay, this date looks kind of dull. Why don't we do our gathering, on this night, right? And we weren't there to compete with the convention.
And we would separate from the herd ultimately and do our own thing. But the beautiful thing, and I mean, you can almost ask anybody that was around during that time, or they're just still fanatics and still have the tattoo, that they're just, that still rock it, that they were just like, those were some of the best ZCons when there was a TT.net event that was attached to them. And then I'd get excited about ZCon and I'm like, yeah, great. But if there was a TT.net dinner happening at that ZCon, that was it. Take my money. Shut up and take my money.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah, personally,
that was it.
Personally, for me, the truth was that the attraction after the first one, like I went to 03, was the first convention I attended, and up until COVID, I had a solid run. I didn't not attend a single one.
Deviate.
Yeah, I think I went like 18 years straight or something, right? Which is longer than my marriage and older than my kids.
I'm gonna go ahead and edit this for prosperity when we launch this on YouTube in a few days. Remember, mark the time, Mike. 1 minute 12.
Yeah.
12 minutes. Go ahead and cut out. We went dark for 60 seconds. All right.
It dates back to hugely formative years for me, right? Like it was the you just got out of school and you're just trying to figure out your path in the world, right? And you've got your first or second like real apartment, and I mean when that was the time when all this stuff sort of started clicking for me, right? And the notion of, hey, let's go across the country to San Antonio to a car convention. I mean, even
True.
on paper, it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounded ridiculous in 2003, right? And who do we know there? Well, other than some screen names from a website, I don't know anybody, right? It wasn't. It has since become. I'm going because I want to see these people that I know, right? That I've now put faces to those screen names and suggested that maybe they should change that screen name because it's obnoxious or it's silly or they're grown up and all that.
Yeah.
But you know, but we did this backwards, right? We were at a different time in this whole technological revolution, right? It wasn't that we went online to catch up on what people from high school were doing, right? We went online and we met people, and then we developed a community and a camaraderie, loosely based around this car. But it also just became like, hey, I don't know. I guess it turns out that other people that like this car are also into some other interests that I have, and you became friends sort of without realizing it, right? You arrived at a convention and you meet somebody standing in registration and you're like, oh shit, you're Milo? Oh, hey, I'm Bernie, right? And then you're like, all right, hey, what are we doing for lunch?
Yeah,
I know. It's weird. I mean, my entire plans for the first two, like I had my whole Z convention would be what I had it in my mind of what I'm going to do for 5 days. And then once I met like other TT.net people, it's like, oh, I guess we're going to a steakhouse or we're going to a cowboy bar and singing karaoke till 4 a.m. And it's just
we're going
that's
out.
just how we rolled. Like the nerd was like so strong. It was so ridiculous. But I wanted to take a moment here, and because we do have some people on from TT.net. Dennis,
I disavow all those people right now.
You disavow. He goes, Sean Buck.
They're lies, all of them.
Says, if you remember screen names, throw them out here. But Sean Buck says, the green noob N. I'm assuming he's saying it's lit. So that was hot. That was the hotness. Dennis saying, and it's all written in PERL, if I recall correctly, which he probably is absolutely correct, and which is amazing in its own right. Let me see here. Dan Zupkos just says, don't forget the pre-car forums. Oh, nice. The team.net mailman does list info. That's old school. That is that's pretty. That was like, I'm looking for used car parts. And that was like early prehistoric Craigslist. That's where it was at. And then you just met in a dark alley, and that's just how it went, So let me see here. Dennis Whittakin, TT.net dinner in Beeham this summer. I don't know, man. We'll talk about that towards the end of
I'm game.
This interview. If we can organize, we just have to have what we call boots on the ground. We got to have a man on the inn out in Birmingham. So we'll have to check the records and see who we got. Rick Quintanilla talking about 2002. I guess he's referencing that San Antonio show that we did a while back. So Nilla, I think you want to talk about an old school person, Nilla.
Yeah, Halo Z. Because all things 9 Inch Nails mattered in 1999.
One of the most hated and loved people that I ever existed on TT.net. Absolutely love that guy. on this side of the fence, I love that guy.
Nilla is all heart. Okay, he's all teddy bear. I don't know how anybody would have any animosity on him. Right?
He's a fluffy, cuddly bear who enjoys his time in Japan in certain areas. So we'll just leave it at that. But, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit and deviate from this and kind of talk about really you. So we talked about the forum. We talked about, ultimately what was progressing through TT.net throughout the years. Now, you, and I know you're going to be the humble person that you always are, but you did personal innovations for the Z32 that really kind of saved the common guy from all the hassle, the bullshit, the now discarded part numbers. I mean, and I'm just going off of my head right now. I'm not looking at any type of list. Like one of the pain in the butts for the Z32 was installing the steering rack and trying to get all the freaking bolts to line up. And what did you do? You found out what the thread was, and you made yourself a grade 400 bolt that was the perfect pitch thread, because it has to be the weirdest pitch thread on the planet to get you to put that steering rack back in there. Kudos. We could never get the water pump pulley design to run what it needed to run to get you the optimum cooling. Bernie, took the time, figured that ish out, and you created the pulley and the you put it together here to make that happen.
Oh, I didn't know that was you. Yeah.
The pulley, I won't even take full credit on the pulley. There's guys before me on that. The pulley came out of Australia, right? The pulley came from I don't know the guy's name personally, but he went by PEX, PEX, and there was a batch of them that that we bought as a group buy. I think I bought like 10 of them, something in that magnitude, and they all came in, and they were cut out of like billet steel, right? I mean, I have no idea what the, I can only assume it was, this steel rod that he was having cut into this thing, right? And the dimensions were good and the fit was fine, but what we realized in actually installing it is that the offset was wrong on the on where the belt ribs fell, right?
The fleet angle, yeah.
That lineup was just a hair off, and it never got right. And you could never find the right. You could never find the right washer to give you exactly what you needed for that freaking spacing. It was a freaking nightmare. Yeah.
So
anyway.
so the original
Only
sort of
Z32 people would know what I'm talking about.
I know, but it was one of those things where I had an engine out of a car, and so we installed the pulley on it, and I'm looking at it, from angles you can't see it in the car, right? But when you're
like, yeah, that doesn't look right.
Yeah,
just
but like sitting there, I remember we had it was an engine on a stand. We're sitting in the garage. I'm on this like little rolly stool next to it, and I'm sure we had stopped for dinner or something because and I'm just sitting there and I'm staring at it, and I'm like, that MFer isn't lining up right. I'm like, is it my imagination, or is this belt in the wrong place? And so, I went back and forth, and I never really got a good response on it. I'm like, hey, I gave feedback to the guys in Australia, and I said, listen, I think this thing is off, right? And the response I got was sort of a shrug, or it wasn't much of anything. And then, a guy out in California that had access to a machine shop was like, look, I think I can readjust this thing so the relative offsets are correct, right?
So it's not doing this dance. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So your belt's not riding off to the side, right? And so, he took that and he adjusted the measurements and adjusted sort of the thicknesses and machined it out of billet, and that was the pulley that we ended up sort of bringing that to the U.S. market was what was called the high pulley, and the there was all kinds of drama that ensued, but other companies went on to copy that first one, right? And so then there was an entire batch of Chinese sourced AMS pulleys that were all copied off of the original Australian one, and they just reincorporated the same offset problem and sold however many of those went out, so whereas we caught the issue very early on, when AMS ran with it, they made however many they made with the error in it.
Let's not go into the dark, deep crevice. AMS, we call those the dark years, so we'll just go ahead and leave that alone. But But I want to kind of talk about something else that a lot of people, and this really is the lifeblood of the Z32, and really one of the most problematic things for the Z32. And this is really why I wanted to kind of get you on. But I personally think that you are owed a credit for the harnesses. So for those that don't know, and keep me in the truth here, Bernie, but ultimately the Z32 harnesses at some point were ultimately being discontinued. This is before anything was being offered through Z1 or anybody else. It was just, there was only so many on the shelves at Nissan. Nissan was moving on with their lives. They already were broken up with the Z32. The 350Z was out, and you were just kind of hunting for these harnesses. God help you if you had one of the weird automatics and everything else. But the EFI harness, the electric fuel injection harness, which is the brain, it feeds the ECU, the fuel injectors, PTU,
Well,
crank angle
I,
sensor,
I
all
would
that.
disagree that it's the brain. I would say that it's really the nervous system, right?
Nervous system. Thank
It's
you
the
very much.
spinal cord and all the reach of it, right? And it connects all those components, right?
Right.
If the ECU is the brain, then it's the it's the web that reaches out from it.
But what drove you? What drove you to say, you know what, this is it? If we're going to keep these cars on the road, you knew, and we all knew it. We were all cutting and splicing and chopping. We were spending hours soldering crap together to try to keep these harnesses, these Frankenstein harnesses together. I had done it so many times, and then you ultimately put it together. And I remember the post to this day. You had a harness that was ultimately running from the ECU out the pillar of the car into the hood, and that was your beta. That was your prototype
I still have it.
harness.
I still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the development, man, and then kind of what happens after that, because I really think you're owed a due and a credit for those harnesses, because if you hadn't created, there wouldn't been a realization that these things truly are the lifeblood of that car.
So the frustration. Listen, to this day, I have Nissan harness part numbers memorized, right? Like, and I, you know, so you can quiz me on it if you want, but the point is, there was I still have it somewhere. I had like a little post-it note, and it had maybe 6 or 7 part numbers on it, right? And I actually stumbled upon it the other day. And it was my cheat sheet of, this part number for an automatic will work on a 90 through 93, and this part number will work on a 94 through this, and you know what I mean. And back in the day when you could still get a factory harness for sub $300, right? Like, that was huge knowledge just to have sort of sifted through like which part numbers represent which application and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was okay, but even in that time there was models that were not supported anymore, because essentially what happened is Nissan effectively made, for every permutation for every model year, there was, I think, something like 8 part numbers created, right? So there was originally, it was a TT or an NA, it was an auto or a manual, right? And then it was a federal or a California emissions, right?
California was the wild card.
Yep. And then when the convertible came out, that had some gray area too about what year your convertible was relative to, because the convertible bodies are made like a year earlier than the production year and when it's sold, right? So that's why you see things like this applies to 90 to 93 or 90 to 92 plus 93 convertibles, because 93 convertibles were, here's a secret, 93 convertibles were made out of cut up 92 slick tops. So
don't even tell me that, because I'm a slick top nerd. Get away, Bernie. It's like, go away.
So
Just stop.
So that's true, right? So so the reality is that and when I say slick tops, I mean like the rough shell of it. They didn't build a whole car and then cut the roof off of it, but like the basics of it are essentially that. But anyway, the point was, the harness situation was problematic 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It was already messy, right? And you could maybe get something, and even if you bought a new harness, you were still then cutting and splicing in things to make it compatible with your engine. Like if you bought a 95 harness but your car was a 94, then you needed different injectors, and it was always this hodgepodge of stuff, right? And Nissan didn't. It wasn't that some part numbers just dried up and they didn't make more of, right? So, and that tended to be the automatic applications early on. It was, the 95 automatic harnesses have been gone for probably 20 years now, and that was based on sales. And, they only sold whatever it was, 5,095 cars across all of them, right? And then chop that up into, 6 or 8 part numbers for the model year for different permutations, right? And you can see very quickly that there's no way that Nissan's going to maintain what amounts to 6 model years times 8 harnesses per model year, like 50 different part numbers. It's just not practical, right? Sure. And if you weren't intimately involved in pulling engines and replacing them and working on these cars and knowing what the minutia was between this model year or that model year, it was a lot harder to sort of juggle like what harnesses were available versus what harnesses weren't. And there was a lot of like, we'll buy this, mod that, and then we'll change out your crank angle sensor. It was, you were either building the car to match the harness or matching the harness to the car, right?
Yeah.
Or some
splice and even soldering, and you're leaning over that thing and soldering all night long. But
I'm sure I've ingested so much solder that like
that was ultimately my point. It's like, and I think at a certain point you develop the harness as a whole. And I think, who did you ultimately push it through?
We went so I was approached by Yuri from Wiring Specialties, right? And it was at a time when Wiring Specialties was mostly known for their S chassis stuff, right? So they were well regarded, I think, on Sylvia, right? They weren't really that known on TTNet, and they were still at the time when we started this conversation. They were starting to manufacturing some of their harnesses. You're doing an SR swap. Here we have a harness. Like, you tell us which chassis and which vintage engine, and we'll produce that, right? That was at the very sort of early time when they were starting to do that. They originally started out as a shop that would take, your existing KA harness and what came in with your SR motor, whatever shrapnel was left, and they would chop it and cobble it together and send it back to you refreshed, right? And that was the way that stuff got done for a long time, right? That on a SR or a KA, that's a lot easier to execute because there's so much more room to reach around that engine bay. You can swap a harness out in a matter of minutes, realistically.
Well, without an engine pool associated to it too, as well. You didn't have to figure in the labor hours for that as well, which is pretty crazy. So,
but in the TTNet world, or in the Z32 world, I should say, that was not the case, right? Like, an engine harness is an undertaking, right? And it's a lot harder to reach the back of it and all of that. So you're really left with, I can splice the ends of these things at best, but the meat and potatoes, the actual thick part of the harness, you're not gonna,
This is where the call to Bernie happened so many times back in the prehistoric. There wasn't harnesses available. You're like, Bernie, can I put a 95 harness on a 92 chassis and just solder it in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
But
so
pretty
so
funny.
What happened is Yuri reached out and he said, I'd had this idea of like making something more universal, right? Like that was based, and it was what I was essentially doing in practice, which is I was using 95 harnesses that I was still able to buy, and that Nissan had kept 95 TT manuals in production, right? And that's a 24011 51P 61 for those of you at home.
Nerd, yeah.
So we were using that, and then we would add whatever it is that you needed, right? Whether we were rolling something back, or if it was an automatic, it meant unlooming the whole thing and reintroducing the appropriate wires for the automatic and taping it all back up. And that was hours of effort and, 2 rolls of electrical tape and, and you were fundamentally taking a brand new product and chopping into it, right? So you were starting out at sort of in a diminished quality in my mind already, right? But that was what was possible, so that's what we did, right? Anyway, I think if I remember correctly, Yuri reached out to me because I was sort of known for selling harnesses, I guess, right?
Bernie, you're Mike Smith in this thing. Come on, man.
I know, and he basically approached me with an idea, right? Which is, look, his point was, I don't really know the Z32. You know it. He's like, I know harness manufacturing. I know these are the connectors and the ends and this shit that are being used for SR harnesses are fundamentally the same. On the RB, on the VG, this is all the same vintage kind of stuff at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, so I think we could make this, right? He's like, this connector, he's like, I've got access to manufacturing that has all these pieces. So really all I need is examples, right? Like the dimensions of what these harnesses look like, between this wire and this, like, can we disassemble one of these and go through it? And can you show me what components need to be here, what's useful, what's not useful, etc., right? And what's going to be, and at the time, the overriding concern was we need one product that can support as many cars as possible, because, the reality is manufacturing 10 different harnesses for the same freaking engine is what's killing it from the Nissan perspective, right? So let's not embark on that from the get-go, right? So the 96s were always an anomaly, and they're to this day, they're difficult to support, right?
Oh yeah.
From a harness perspective. And that's, little product placement is something that I'm working on still. But we decided that we settled on, look, if the 95 sort of wiring scheme and the internals of the harness had some benefits, and how things were powered and routed and switched were updated, we're going to stick with the 95. We disassembled one. We reintroduced the automatic wiring into it so that it could support both a manual and an auto. It could it was for a TT, so it could also support an NA. And then, Yuri's like, look, I've got this quick connect thing. We can do a sub connector for the injectors, so we can do this. And that's really the thing that changes the most, is like, which injector are you using, right? So that's why that piece is it's on its separate loom, so you can change it on the fly. You can change your mind on a different injector design without, ripping out your whole harness and starting over and all that, right? And so we Yuri came down from Connecticut. He took a road trip, and I thought he was bullshitting, right? He was just like, oh, all right, I'll come down. I'll see you tomorrow, right? I'm like, it's like Wednesday, it was like, again, like some guy from the internet just called me and said he was coming, right? So he shows up, and we got on great, right? Like right away we got on well, right? It was nice to meet you. We had sort of the same mentality about this stuff. We had sort of the same goals on it. And in the backyard on my picnic table, which, has seen more Z32 work than probably picnics, right? We splayed out a stock harness, and kind of worked through it kind of like in a pegboard sort of way, right? And then decided what it needed, and he took that with him, and then that got turned into a schematic, and then that went into production, and then we got back one of the prototype came back, and it was incomplete in the sense that and you can actually see it, and if you find an old picture, I maybe could find it if you really want the minutia of it, but like
that's right. But yeah, I mean, you were pumping those out, and then ultimately that was where it kind of started, and then you had other companies like, and I'm fast tracking here, obviously, but you had companies like Z1 that were ultimately taking your parts and moving those forward for you, and they were selling them at some point. And then they just kind of they took those same harnesses, they put out betas, and then ultimately made their own variations of that. But I mean, what I wanted to give you ultimately credit for was the fact that you took the time to do that, which in its own right deserves a nod, in my opinion, which is why I want to talk about, because quite honestly, I really don't think there would be that many Z32s on the road if you hadn't taken that initiative ultimately up front and done that. I know and I already know you. I can see the face. You're doing that humble thing. You're doing the humble thing, but I really do. I really want to say thank you from a collective Z32 fanaticism that's out there. I just want to say thank you on that behalf.
Thanks.
I'll accept
Now-
on behalf of the board collective then. But,
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
For those that don't know, and for those that didn't realize why we brought on Bernie as well, nonetheless, I mean, he's obviously our friend, and we've known him for many years, and he's just an amazing person to talk to. And I could spend an entire night at the bar over beers or a fire pit, just kind of nerding out on car stuff. But there is one other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, and one of the most epically amazing stories that you could share with anybody who is a 300ZX fan and probably around the 90s, just interested in general Nissan design. You can ultimately, I'm going to backtrack. You and Adam Clater can be credited for bringing one of the most amazing Nissan designers out of hiding.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
All right. Well, for starters, we're gonna say it's Adam Clater and me, because it was really Adam's venture.
I'm gonna say like a silent, like a Jay and Silent Bob type of scenario.
Yeah, I play.
It is a collective.
I definitely play the Jay or the Silent Bob to his
Hey,
Jay.
Bob. And Adam Clater is the mouth. Definitely the mouth of the scenario. Adam, if you're on tonight, I absolutely love you. Any TT.net fan will back me up 400% on that respect.
Somewhere.
But let's talk a little bit about the man that we're talking about and how you found him first off, and then how that connection made in Japan of all things, from the US, to pull him out of hiding, to get him into the spotlight and get him to the point where he's of an I'm going to say a fanboy status now. I mean, people absolutely love that guy. He's a rock star. But of course, we're talking about who, Bernie?
It's Toshio Yamashita-san, right? It's Yamashita is how looks like it's spelled, but it's pronounced Yamashita essentially.
But we always call him Yama.
Yama.
Yama translates to mountain, and that is the largest small man you have ever seen in your life. He is.
All right, so let's talk about how you found this man that was kind of hidden in obscurity, but was very, very much in the forefront of every weird Japanese magazine that we were nerding out for years, that we didn't know that he was right there in front of us the whole time.
In plain sight.
He was in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight. So go ahead.
So, for a long time, and this, I blame with a capital B, right? The Mad Mike crew, in that we the twin turbo net Z32 owners were definitely the stepchildren of the conventions, right? The Datsun guys, that was their show. We were there because on a technicality, we happened to share a letter of the alphabet with them, right? Like they went out of their way to let us know that we were freaking stepchildren at best, right? And we would get the shout out from Mad Mike that went something like, and then those assholes over there in the back table, already drunk with the camera flashes. That's the dummies off the twin turbo guys, right? And so
we had fun. Whatever.
And still do, right? And so look, the question was simply put, who's our guy, right? Mr. K was the representative of the Datsun brand, right? And Matsuo-san was there to represent, the design and the heritage and how that car came to life, right? But we were very much felt to be this sort of tacked on, asterisk in all this. And we kept asking, like, who at Nissan remembers this car? Who was involved in this car, right? Where did this car come from, right? Like it was such a epically different and unique design and such a moonshot of a vehicle. Like we came in and we came on when the 350 was coming to light, right? Like 03, 02 was the 350 is much like now, right? There was starting to be pictures of it. You saw a handful of production cars or prototypes, but so we were like in this space and time where we didn't have that connection, right? And for a long time we asked that question and nobody knew the answer, right? Or the answer was, well, the person that was in charge of that project has already passed away, or that person's no longer with Nissan, and that was the answer you got, right? And I don't think anyone really had the right answer of what happened to the Z32 people, right? Mostly the answer we got was they've really all left Nissan at this point, right? And which it was.
For the record, I'm gonna show something here real quick, just so I can give praise to where praise belongs. We'll bring this up in a fourth screen.
Yeah.
And Mike, yeah.
That's,
To the left is the mouth Adam Clatter, who I absolutely love to this day. He's my boy. He's my running partner, just like we always are. Whenever we get together, it becomes a conglomerate of just crazy when we're all together, and I love him. But for those that don't know, that is Adam. To the right is Bernie in the wild. So moving along, we and I apologize, Bernie. I just want to give credit where credit was due.
That's right on here. Save this one for the next break. But so look, we were sort of adrift, right? And we were looking for the answer of who's my dad, right? Because I love Mr. K, right? I've met him, and he was a delightful person. He was hugely important, right? But we weren't his kids, right? Like we were his grandkids, maybe, or you know what I mean? Like in that generational hierarchy, we were not his kids, right? And so we were all asking who's our dad, and we kept getting the shrug from mom, going like, it's awkward. We can't answer that question for you, right?
Yeah.
So born out of some kind of frustration / audacity, right? I think is the word I settled on yesterday. Adam started looking in a couple of books that were English language, most importantly, right? About who was in the design team, who these people were, that where did this car come from, right? And there's we can do a little product placement here, right?
We can.
But so this thing,
for those that don't have the book and you don't have it, the price just went up $10 on eBay right now because
I think Amazon just sold out. No, I mean, but this thing was published in the 90s, right? So it's contemporary to the car, and it's out of the UK. It's 100 pages. It's called Nissan 300ZX Enthusiast Companion. And
before you get into that, Dennis dropped a note in the comments. He said, so many times we were told it was designed by a committee, and he's 100% right. It's all about. There definitely is that idea of a brand getting behind something and not really supporting a one man or one or two man team. And the sad part about that is you kind of lose the heroes in that. And that's one of my biggest complaints with Nissan is you never really get heroes. And the heroes we have are few and far too many. And Bernie, I saw you grab something. What you got?
Nothing. That was just that little pullback.
No, okay, go ahead.
Where?
But yeah, I mean, that was my biggest complaint. It was like we didn't have a lot of heroes, and then for the Z32, that was just a huge loss for us to be told that it was like created by a committee, or the designer was the lead, and he is now no longer part of this earth. And you're just like, it just didn't resonate well with us. We knew there had to be more, and you guys took it upon yourselves to dig deeper.
Yeah, so culturally in Japan, credit goes to the group, right? And it's just it's a different sort of way of looking at it, right? They don't have you know, the Shelbys and those kind of names out there. Really, they not much. So anyway, we went looking deeper, right? And what turned out to be auspicious is this book is benefits that it's in the English language, right? And it was written at the time when the car came out, so it actually had pictures of the design team and it had some names associated, right? And so in this book, we you know, or more accurately, Adam found a list of names that he pulled out and, you know, starts writing them down on a piece of paper. I remember him doing it, like, and you know, we're in a hotel room somewhere and he's like, you know, this guy, this, you know, these people, right? And then he starts essentially like Googling, you know, like what, you know, does this name, you know, this name plus Nissan, does it pop up in any article, right? Does it pop up in any context? And unfortunately, some of these are very generic Japanese names. So you just, you know, like you just get either results all in Japanese or you get results that are not especially useful, right? And you know, out of mostly blind, absolute fortunate luck, we stumbled upon, you know, Yama and reached out to him. That we found or Adam found I think it was a LinkedIn profile, right, where it mentioned, you know, former Nissan design, you know, it credited some cars to him. There were some typos in there. Like it looked pretty legit, right? But, you know, we're like,
so
I don't
Adam
know.
spent all that time hunting for that guy, found him, found
Yeah.
a LinkedIn connection, and then he
Yeah.
just kind of put it all together.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
So he found all that data and then he put that all together and then just started like just firing out emails to random Japanese folk.
It was a name in a book that was thankfully in, you know, it had been transliterated into English, right? And then from there it was a couple of, you know, blind shots out in the dark, right? Like I'm gonna send this text message to, you know, or I'm gonna send this you know, a LinkedIn request to a name that happens to mention some Nissan stuff in his bio, and it seemed plausible, right? And then lo and behold, we got a reply back. Like it was like one of those things where you do one of those, like, you know, 21andMe, and you realize that, you know, there's a guy across town that shares, you know, that shares 80% of your chromosomes or something, right? And you're like, wait a minute, you know, what's going on? And it was, we get this reply back that's like, yes, you know, that's me. And we're like, do you know about the Z32 design? He's like, yes, I designed it. Like it was as plain as that, right? It was no bullshit, no sort of you know, no ambiguity about it, no kind of like lost in translation. It was straight up, yes, I have designed it. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like what do you
set a precedence here. Your guys sitting in the U.S. You haven't even considered going to Japan, and you were, I think, maybe potentially looking at going to a Japan trip with maybe one of the Z conventions.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, you had, and I'm just talking about things just lining up perfectly.
Oh man.
You found the guy that potentially was going to be it. You don't know if it's BS. You don't know if it's what do they call it? The guy that shows up with the Mike's Hard Lemonade and the condoms. You don't know if it's going to be that scenario. You know, the predator. You know, you have no idea what you're walking into. But ultimately, you made a LinkedIn connection for the guy who could potentially be the designer for the 300ZX.
Listen,
one of the most
we had
cars
actually,
ever.
We're a step ahead, right? We had no expectation of finding the designer, right? Because for so long we had been told that person is gone, right? Like, or that person didn't exist, right?
Your father left. He went out for a pack of smokes.
Yeah, he went out for a pack of Camels, and he never made it back, right?
All right, just sit in your corner, play with your Play-Doh.
Yeah. Sorry about your luck, kid. No, we literally had no expectation of finding the designer, right? That wasn't even the target, right? The target was, we were looking for people that were involved, right? Like I would have settled for the intern, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was looking for
Anything.
anybody.
The guy who holds a door open at Nissan headquarters.
We were
Anything,
literally
right?
looking
So,
for anybody, right, that was
All right.
of that era, right? That was there when that car was designed, right? That could tell us anything in terms of context or reasons or any of those kind of, or just give us some sense or some root of where this car came from, right? So
Yeah.
to say we were looking for the designer is a huge overstatement, right? We were looking for anybody in that team, right? And so Adam was compiling that list of names, was like, listen, I think this person designed door handles. Like if I can get the door handle dude right, then from there, right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
like, man, I'm gonna know
If I get
everything about
if
door
I can get a
handles,
door
right?
handle guy for the Z32, I'm in.
I'm in,
And we'll buy him
right?
a
Yeah.
beer, and that's just how it is. It's magic. Go
And,
on.
Yeah.
and then right, not only do the, and so we literally, our mind like evaporated, right? The reply that Adam gets back is not only, yes, like not only, first of all, the guy replied, right? Two, he replies in English, which was huge because we're like, what's the odd? Like, it's a Japanese LinkedIn profile, right? Like the only stuff we could read was like the names of the model numbers, 300Z, 350Z, G35, stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that we could, translate, right? But
Yeah.
the rest of this was sort of out of reach, right? So not only does he replies in English, and then he tells us that he designed the freaking car, right? And so,
Yeah.
we're sitting around like, oh my God, what did we just stumble into, right? And it's, we're there in t-shirts, right? Like we're not there representing BCCA. We're not representing anybody from Nissan USA.
And I'm going to just set a precedent here. We're probably showing up in the typical TT.net cargo shorts. This shirt, probably one of them,
right?
And then if Yama being Yama, if he shows up, I'm assuming he's dressed to the nines and looks fabulous,
Well,
right?
Now, yes, right? Because now you know him and you know that the guy's a designer, right? So of course everything is pressed and tip top on him and looks like he's a rock star, right? He was, when we met him. So we had this conversation, and we were going to Japan with a Mad Mike trip, and we sort of had this in our pocket, like we're gonna see if we can like have dinner if this guy's willing to meet, right? Like we'll meet in a park on a bench in broad daylight, like so we don't look like we're trying to mug the man, like whatever.
So we don't put you in a van.
Yeah, whatever he's comfortable with, like we're gonna comply, right? So so we, as it turns out, we're like, look, we're going to be in Japan on these dates, right? And he's like, that's good, I will be in town, right? And like, again, like,
yeah, another one
country, like the whole country. No, we'll be in that town, right? Like we'll be in like he's like, oh, I teach in Yokohama, or I live in Yokohama, and I'm teaching in the city, so I'll be there, right? And we're just like, okay, yeah, we'll be there too. Like that's, yeah, I can make a date, right? Like I'll adjust my calendar for this, right? So we invite him to dinner, and he comes, and he looks like he looks in the picture in the book, right? Except snazzier and more rock star, and you're just like, that's really him. That's the guy, right? And there was no we were there explicitly and completely on our own dime and as fans, right? Like it was as genuine and as honest as it could have been, right? In the sense that we had no agenda other than we were just trying to understand something about where this car came from and how it is that an entire community of people, right, has formed around it. This website has formed around it. That we're traveling, back and forth to Japan to meet other people around. Like there's all
So-
these things and all these things that have pulled us together in our lives because of this one car, right?
So
and we're just
trying
trying
to
find the
explain
guy,
that
right?
in one simple meeting has got to be one of the most complicated things. I mean, you're sitting there telling a guy like, you are literally the linchpin or the creator of an entire like series of
A
memories for
cult.
people.
Yeah.
Time machines that kind of took people back to everything.
Listen,
And
one of
for
us.
somebody who's just kind of like disassociated themselves from Nissan at a certain point, they're just like, are you guys like on the level? Like, is that kind of how that conversation went?
Look, the conversation felt very much like we were the collective Morpheus to his Neo, right? and
Yes.
Good
and-
job. Good job. All right.
and he's just like, I don't really. He's like, I'm not in. He's like, I'm not plugged into this world, right? Like, I'm not, and this is long before we knew shit else about him, right? But he's just like, I designed cars for Nissan for a long time, and then I retired, and then I'm teaching, design here in Tokyo, and then I was, I'm doing some freelance work and this kind of stuff. But he was not a car guy. He was not at car shows. He was not,
What's funny, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to the notes here, and I'm gonna reply. So, like Ion says, you don't understand. We're your cult. Hello, leader. And he's just like Adam sent here, and for the most part, Yamashita-san had no clue about the car's following or importance. He's extremely modest to begin with, and that was extremely the sense I got when Ion met him. Yeah, I think you're right.
We were falling over ourselves that it was really him. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you meet I don't know, you meet somebody famous, right? Except that person has no idea that they're famous, right? Like, you're like, dude, you're the man. You're in this book. Like, I found you in a book, right? Like, hey, man, there's a picture of you in the book. And he's just like, I've never seen that book. And wait, you guys came from where? From Virginia? Like, what?
So he ultimately had disbelief. You guys had a meeting. You met in a bar.
It was a hotel. Look, it was a hotel. It was a hotel bar. Don't make it sound swarmy, okay?
I'm not saying it sounds sleazy.
It happened to be kind of on the up and up, but it was also next to his metro stop or something, right? It was on his train stop, right?
So you met the legend, the mountain where the buck stops here. For those that know that story. But ultimately, how did the progression go from here? Because ultimately, you guys found him, the two of you, and that was it. This is where it all kind of started and originated. The second coming of the Z32 Christ, if you will, and I'm probably going to get flack for that at a later time. But nonetheless, you found this gentleman. But how did you kind of start getting him back into popularity, or did that just naturally progress?
Well, it was, look, we were there on a trip with Mad Mike, but we were there on our own accord, right? Like, this meeting with him was on our own accord, and so we kind of explained who we were, right? And it wasn't that we worked, like, we were there as individuals and as fans, but we were unofficially, or we were trying to be the representatives of this community, right? Saying, look, we've been on this website for years keeping this car running, right? Like, not, I'm talking about this one stupid design that you threw out on a Tuesday, right? Altered all of our lives, right?
Yeah.
So we're here to tell you that, like, no bullshit. This thing's important, right? Like, it's a big deal. It's still a big deal, right? Like, I know you've drawn a million things since then, and it may not even register for you, like, in your, whether you think about it or not, right? But, like, we just wanted to sort of express that and be super thankful about it and genuine. And we really just appreciated him giving us an hour or whatever it was to have this conversation, right? and we tried to offer him a meal and he refused, and then we tried to offer him and ply him with drinks, and then like the time went by, and it was brilliant and awesome and so genuinely affirming. You know, that whole like don't meet your heroes thing, right?
Yeah.
That's such
Sure.
that's such a loaded
Yes.
premise, right?
Yeah.
But my God, when it turns out that your heroes just exceed your expectations in every way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the greatest, right? And we spent, I couldn't tell you, 2-ish hours we occupied his time. We talked about the car. We kind of we're just dopey guys and we like these cars, and like we're totally geek girls on this. And he was humble and genuine and appreciative and genuinely wanted to know about the community, right? And about us. And we're describing the convention, right? Like, there's these conventions and we mentioned Matsuo-san and he's like, well, yeah, I know him. I used to work with him, right? And you're like, yeah, okay. Like I've met him at a convention. Like I was name dropping,
he's a big deal in our world.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize that I was getting name dropped in reverse, but okay, right? But my bad. Right? But so we're just describing this to him, and he's like, okay, I had no idea that those things were happening, right? That there were conventions. He wasn't even really aware, believe it or not, of like the clubs in Japan, much less the clubs in the US, right? Yeah. And so we described the convention phenomenon and some of the things that like Matsuo would do, and he's like, that seems cool. Like I would come, right? And we're like, do what?
Wide eyes.
Like you would.
What?
Oh, because I'll write you a check right now. Like it was like Adam and I are looking at each other like, hey, did we just offer to buy him a plane ticket? And so what if we did? Because I got points to burn on this, right? Like he on that first meeting, right? Like he was just epically. And if you've met him in person, you know how sort of, I don't want to say simple, but how just genuine and plain like his demeanor is, right? He's not at a distance. He's not aloof. He's at his core, he's a teacher, right? So he loves to just share and educate and have this stuff, right? So then to be asked these questions that about the design of that car that maybe he hadn't really been asked in a billion years, right? Or at all, because he wasn't really the guy doing the interviews when the car came out, right? I thought it was really great to have that experience with him. And just this sort of very natural conversation where like, hey, why is the car like this? Or what was the design thinking here? Or what happened there? And he just was like, oh, of course. Like, and he loves to start sentences with, oh, because, right? Like, oh, and
we were talking about like, why is the antenna on the Z32 shaped the way it is? And he goes, there's a story. And you're just like, holy crap, there's a story?
Yeah.
The story, I try to keep it distilled, but the story is that, feasibility, like when you design a car, that's the drawing, right? And then there's the practical production guys come in and they're like, all right, well, I know you want it to look sexy, but the truth is the antenna is going to have to fit here, right? Like, and so the guys from feasibility came through and they wanted the antenna up on the fender, just like on a Z31 up front, right? And Yama's like, that's not going to work, right? And this is a manual, it's a manual aerial, so it had to be, for the technology at the time, it had to be a certain height, and it had to, they wanted it over the roof line of the car, all this stuff, right? So Yama goes, the vice president was coming that day, right? And they had the clay already, the car was in 1/1 scale, but it was in clay. And so he goes, I told the my associate, just stick the antenna where feasibility wants it, right? So imagine a Z32 with an aerial antenna sticking out of like the driver's fender, right? You know, like just and how much of an eyesore that could be, right?
Yeah.
And because they were saying that was the only flat surface of the car for the antenna to come out of, right? Because, you know, anyway, the point was they wanted it up there, right? So he goes, so jam that thing. So they jammed this thing into the clay, right? And so then, you know, in the whole design team's there, everybody's like looking at the car. Vice president of Nissan's walking through, looking at the car, and he walks up to Yama and he's like, what's this about, right?
What's up with this antenna?
Yeah. and Yama's like, you know, I'm very sorry, but you know, feasibility says that this is the only place where it can be, right? Mm-hmm. And just like totally sandbagged, you know, the feasibility guys are like come on, right?
They're the bus.
What the hell, bro?
I know we're friends.
He drove the bus over them, right? And then the person backed up on him, right? So he throws the entire feasibility team under the bus for the antenna, and then the vice president goes, "No, it's not acceptable. Like, you can fix that, right?" And so then he had, you know, carte blanche to solve the antenna dilemma, right?
He's like, let me take a moment.
Right.
I think I might have something.
and so the reason the antenna comes out of the back, right, is not one stylistically, right, but because the deck lid is so wide and covers over the fence, like the deck of the back of the car overlaps the edges of the fenders, essentially, or the fender profile, right? So you can't have an antenna sticking out of the top of the deck lid, right? Because the motor and the whole thing is, you know, a foot deeper than what you see on the surface. Yeah. So he's like, okay, well, we can stick it here in the fender in the rear quarter, and it will exit through this, you know, side hole, which is why it's in that little circle that's tucked, you know, like it was shaping the metal into that form was too difficult. So we could make a cast piece that the antenna exits through, and then the whole antenna assembly can fit underneath it. And that's why it launches that way. That's why it's in this perfect round circle, right? And you're like, wow, all right. Like there's an like, not only is there an answer, right? It's not just like, oh, it looked good, right? It's like there's an actual, like, there's backstory, there's villains, there's, you know,
they had to get to Mordor and drop the ring off. I mean, it was involved, son.
So, but he's just telling this, like, he tells it with this like kind of chuckle, and he gets kind of glazed over about it, right? And you're just like, oh, okay. Like you could tell that he liked having this conversation. He wasn't annoyed by the question, right? It was just, okay, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I remember.
Reminisce on some really amazing things that nobody would ever know. But and I'm going to fast track here a little bit. So ultimately, you had this amazing meeting with, I mean, the man, if you will, that designed.
You found Dad. Yeah.
You found Dad ultimately for the 300ZX community. Now, ultimately, at one point, you talked this gentleman and I mean, you ultimately talked him into coming stateside. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about his first induction into everything that was going to be the Z community, Z convention. And I'm gonna check a note here real quick, as a comment was just gold here, and he goes, he was amazingly humble to talk around. Oh, hold on, it wasn't that one. He goes, there was something here that was beautiful, and it's exactly how I remember, because I was there at that moment.
Yep.
It was hilarious to inform them that he was about to get mobbed for signatures, and I don't think that realization, he kind of, maybe he thought there was a few people that were just into this, and he goes, but let's talk about landing. He lands at the airport. Walk me through that, Bernie.
So
and I'm going to bring up an image in the background here, Mike, and give me the steering wheel. But go ahead, Bernie.
Sure.
Is this when his wife was with him on the? Is that
hit me with that story, because that's the best.
So we the first year he came by himself, and the second year he brought his wife with, and I think that was San Diego. I think, or no, or maybe I don't. My dates are screwed up at this point, but anyway, he came along, and after the first year, where he's telling his wife about like the experience he's having at the convention, and she's just deciding like, okay, I want to come. Like, I need to see this for myself, right? Like, you're telling me that you're parting the seas of Z dorks, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I don't believe it, right? You're
Whatever.
you are a quiet educator that draws
The
pictures.
typical wife's skepticism. Go
Yeah.
on. All right.
So anyway, we got his landing itinerary for the airport, right? And we I think we pulled Mike Taylor's Xterra as the vehicle that we were going to pick him up at the airport, and we had this moment of clarity, and we had a bunch of Z32 guys collect, like, hey, we're going to go get Yama from the airport. Like, we need a caravan, right? Like, we're not doing this one car, or we're not putting the poor man. I think honestly, I'm going to throw ZCCA a little bit under the bus here. Was the official plan was he was supposed to take the shuttle to the airport, right? Like, he was supposed to take the airport shuttle, like our collective guest of honor was going to take the damn shuttle from the airport. So so somewhere between beer 1 and beer 12, Adam and I decided that was unacceptable, and and we're like, okay, so we're going to get a caravan of guys, anybody in a Z32 that we can find. We're going to tell them, come on, like, stop what you're doing, forget your plans, we're going to go get Yama from the airport, right? and on virtually little notice, we pulled together a pretty good group of cars. I want to say there was a minimum of 10, but in my mind it's 20, right? Like, in my memory, at least, it was 20 cars plus this Xterra. And so we go to the airport, and there's a like, it was a tunnel that you could, like the under the portico kind of thing, right? The typical like drop off, pickup only, do not park here, don't even think about parking here thing. Well, we pull in, and we've got this whole string of Z32s with us, right? And this lonely Xterra in the lead. And we kind of pause, and Adam and I jump out, like, we're gonna go grab Yama and Kimi from the airport, or from customs as they're crossing through, and then we'll walk them out to the car, and we're gonna play it off like it's just the two of us. We're here in our t-shirts, no big deal. Like, we just wanted to come get you, right?
Yeah.
And we caused a little bit of a stir at the airport, because when something like 15 Z32s roll in anywhere, it causes a stir. But we're in the loading unloading zone, do not stop here, and we just occupied the whole zone, right? Like, we're just 15 cars stretched out.
Yeah.
And the security guy rolls through. He might as well have been on a Segway, if you need a mental image or something, or in a golf cart or something. So he's like, what's going on here? I'm like, oh, well, the guy who designed these cars is coming off of the plane. We're here to pick him up, right? And he's like, oh man, that's badass. I'm like, yeah, right. And we're expecting that he's gonna be like, hey, y'all gotta keep rolling, right? And he's like, no, y'all are good, like, you're good, like, like, so
Yeah.
he was into it. And then he's on the radio, like, calling his buddy, being like, yeah, forget Terminal C. Come on over here, check out what's going on over. We basically caused the car show on premises, right? And anyway, we go inside. We get, and we're still playing it cool. We get Yama and his wife from the airport. The greetings. How are you? You're tired? Do you need to, do you need bags? Do you need to use the bathroom? We do all the usual vanilla.
Just pace yourself.
Like, hey, do you guys need a Starbucks? Whatever you want. Like, we've already made good with the security guys, so we're totally eating it up. And we exit out, and Yama's like, oh, I'm tired. I really want to get to the hotel and take a nap and rest. And he's jet lagged and all this crap, right? And we walk out into the pickup zone area, right? And the Xterra's up front. So you're in that like walking with blinders sort of mentality. You're dragging your bag, and oh, this is the car. Here we're going. And then like Yama or Kimi looks back and is like, "What is all this?" Right? And basically the answer is like, Yama's was like, oh yes, these are my people, right? Like, remember when I told you about this? Like, yes, this is what they do, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so we're leaving
Right.
the airport in this
Again?
formation, right, of like this Xterra with the stadium seating in the back, and they're back there, and we're just swarming them in Z32s. And I'm sure she was just like, you can't actually set this up, right? It was so just genuine and perfect. It was total movie material, right? It worked out great.
Yeah.
And we're leaving the airport, and there's like a little tunnel thing that, there's a road over the, like bridge underpass. So of course everybody's just ripping past the Xterra, like with, blow off valves and their exhaust wide open, just coming under the bridge, and she's just like, what is this? Like, how has a lifetime of being your wife prepared me for this moment, right? And he's just like, that's right.
Put sunglasses on. That's right.
I was like,
he was full Mick Jagger at that point, right? Like, he was, he was so
hold on, Mike.
And,
Mike, show the picture.
Yeah, that's the one.
Now look. Now I just want to point out. Look at Bernie's face right there. That face. If your smile could have gone all the way to your ears, dude, it would be there. And look. I mean, come on. Look how freaking cool Yama looks right
Yama's
there.
all rock star, right?
He's all rock star, dude.
Rock star, man. Yeah.
He's got. He was fully formed when he met him, right? Like, he had a signature. Like, right. he had his swagger, his shit is all pressed.
He just needed the audience. Right? That's all it was.
Absolutely, dude. Right. I can't even imagine. Like, Adam and I had this moment where we were like, the only regret I have is I wish I had some way to, like, just before we met him, to just have an excuse to sit in the back of a lecture hall when he was teaching, freaking design, right? Just to be in the room and just be like, I'm just the white guy back here. Don't mind me, right?
Yeah.
Just to see it go down, sort of.
I'm not here for credits.
I'm about to change your life. Yeah.
I'm just here for the prequel, right? So,
the prequel, yeah.
But yeah. So we're leaving the airport, and it was just perfect, right? And I had Tetsu from Ultimate Z was with us on that, and he was just like,
also legend, amazingly cool dude.
And he's just like, this is good, right? He was like, this feels good, right? Like all Z32s, and it was all about that moment and that feeling and that place that he's like, I've been here before, and this is how it's supposed to feel, right? Mm-hmm. And just to bring Yama and his wife into that was just such a perfect little spontaneous event that just, I was like, I don't care what the rest of this convention looks like at this point, right? Like,
yeah,
you could get right back on that plane and go home, right? After that episode, right? Like, I got nothing. So
I mean, that's the kind of the point that I wanted to make. I mean, that brought him, that was kind of his moment of arrival, but you really kind of put it in a very beautiful context last night. We were talking, I wish we would have recorded it. Me and Mike were talking about it. And of course we talked for hours last night, but these cars really are time machines, that, and we won't talk about the new Z and those things and do a comparison, but there really is a time machine that kind of takes people back, and he ultimately is the father of this car that brought that around.
He's our Doc Brown, if you want it, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what it is.
But I wanted to give credit to where credit was due, to Adam and yourself for taking the initiative to do that, because we were hitting that wall for the longest time. And I remember knowing about that. And it was kind of one of those sad things. And it was just like, you know what, we got each other as a community, and we'll move forward at that. And for him to kind of come forward, through a reach out over all these years is amazing. And now he's just like at a Z convention, he's a freaking rock star. I mean, he was there for the new Z release. With saving a little bit of time, you were actually present when he had an opportunity to go back to his Nissan office of all those years ago when he was, and I'm being nice here, but not necessarily dismissed, but he left in a light that he really didn't want to leave in.
Yeah.
He had an opportunity to walk into those doors, not only
Again,
with the Z
yeah.
community, but he walked in with you and Adam in an effort to ultimately just give you the respect for thanking him to bring him around to all this. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk about this because we're getting a little lengthy in time, and I personally don't care. I could talk until 4 a.m. with this.
Running out of tape. I mean, I thought this was all cloud now.
We're running out of data stream
Wow.
at 2 hours and 30 minutes. I have to start paying.
Our AOL minutes are
Yeah.
But for the Z32 community, I
really
really think this is a beautiful story, and it kind of brings everything in a nice, beautiful circle. But kind of walk me through that when he gets an opportunity to walk through his old Nissan office.
Well, so as it turned out, right, the convention was happening in San Diego. I think the first year back, right, the year that we the year after we met him, right, and again that was serendipity, right? Like it happened to be that's where it was, right? And it turned out that Yama was head of design for Nissan San Diego for many years, right? And that was sort of the last place at Nissan that he was at, is my understanding at least. When the convention was in San Diego, and it was announced that there would be a tour of Nissan Design USA or Nissan Design America, whatever they call it. It was. Do you have the picture of that, by the way, Miles?
The ZCon America?
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here.
But anyway, let me keep walking with this. Anyway, it was a moment where we realized that he hadn't been back there since he had left Nissan, right? And that it was his ability to visit that space was really predicated on the fact that he was coming with this entourage of people, right? Like, I don't think him as an individual was going to go knocking on that door just to see if somebody wanted to kick it for lunch. You know what I mean? Like, it was too dramatic of a separation, and too, I don't know. It was a time in his life that had very much had an end to it, right? And so for him to be able to revisit that place, I thought was interesting, and I didn't even really realize just how important that trip was going to be until we were there and we were doing it, right? Because we arrived and he's like, I want to be with on your tour group. I'm like, I can't be. You can't be on my tour group of the place that you used to run, right? It's your tour. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like I can't give you the tour of this thing, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go. And he's the only one without a green name tag stuck to him, by the way. You know what I mean? If you need to know, that's Nissan Design America, I think is what.
Thanks to Dennis for digging that up, by the way.
Yeah, but like, so he we arrive, like, and it's a whole entourage. Like, I think there was 200 people there or something that were taking that tour in waves that day. It was epic. But so we arrive and Yama's like, all right, I'm gonna stick with you guys. And we're like, no, man, we're sticking with you. It's like, this relationship isn't like, this isn't the way this works, right? I'm here in your shadow, not the other way, right? Mm-hmm. And anyway, we come in and he's like, starts pointing out places like, this used to be my office and this, this space was this and they've converted that now. And then people that worked there that knew him from that moment, especially the Japanese that are there, like a lot of people came out and were just effusive in their in their greetings and their appreciation to him, right? And the handshakes and the bows and all that stuff you could tell that he was a very important person to them, right? But he was also again hugely like, in his typical way. He wasn't like aloof or weird about it. He was super genuine. But it was just amazing to just sort of see him back in this space that he was the big boss there for a long time, right? And it was his vision to bring to life, right? And so, we took a tour, but the reality was we kind of spent more time listening to what he had to say about this space or this office or that design studio or this and that, or, what happened here or what cars were designed here and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Way more than I listened to any of the official tour that Nissan was presenting. Right. But, it was just such one of these moments where you're just kind of pinching yourself going, how did we get here? And how did we if we had met him a year later, right, we wouldn't be going to San Diego design, right? You know what I'm like? It was just
it was just very serendipitous, and it all just kind of worked out in a beautiful. This was the way that it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that just kind of fell into place. I mean, even your chance meeting, he didn't live there. It was just like, I was in business at the time. You were in town for a Japan trip that was already pre-designated for time,
right.
and then getting him time to come to the San Diego event. And it's beautiful the way this story kind of lays out that, and this is kind of something that I just wanted to highlight, and Mike, give me the wheel real quick.
There you go.
And honestly, to me, and for most people that kind of attend normal Z conventions, this is how you see that man. But before that was non-existent.
Yeah, we didn't know him, and we didn't know anything about him, right? But
that is exactly the light that he should be in at this time. I mean, the man is a rock star, and to sit in one of those tech talks, if you ever have an opportunity to go to a Z convention or wherever Yamashita is going to be, wherever Yama's going to be,
it's worth your cost of admission, no matter what it is, right?
Thank you. And I've sat in those tech talks. I've sat through the same one, and all of them have been different. But to me, as a Z32 diehard fanatic, I'm in the right time that I want to be. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely, and I feel hugely fortunate that we were able to find him, right? And that he was and right, not only that you found him, right, but that he was willing and interested and open to the idea of giving back to this community, right? To then become part of it, like to say, yeah, I'll come to a convention, I'll come to another one and another one, right? That's with Rodriguez and Matsuo-san there.
Yeah. He's also a very cool guy. I mean, both those, Randy Rodriguez to the left, designer of the 370Z, and Matsuo-san, who is ultimately the designer for the
240.
240Z S30. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, to have him to get to a moment where he's arrived, in a sense, is kind of a beautiful thing. And it's such a beautiful story, and that's why I wanted to really highlight that. Take the time. This is probably the longest episode that we've ever ran.
Let's do it.
But at the same time,
I love it.
If you don't hit 300, we're not doing it right. So we got to keep talking.
But
yeah.
Me and Mike were talking about it. We're like, screw it. How long have we been waiting to talk about something like this? And if we were in a parking lot, this
This is
This-
exactly what we'd be doing right
This is what
now.
we'd be doing in a
This is
parking
where
lot
the
in
sec-
Texas or wherever we are.
But this is
Yeah.
where the security drives by and it's like, "Are you guys sure that you're okay? I've asked 6 times. Are you guys okay?" And he goes, I'm going to go take a lunch break. Do you guys want to just watch the parking lot for an hour since you're obviously not going anywhere?" But this is the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
This is the exactly what we live and die for as Nissan nerds and
Listen,
especially
when-
C32 fanatics.
When the conventions are announced, and I am honestly, I am itching to go back to one because I haven't been in 2 years with the pandemic and stuff, right? But when they're announced, I don't pay any attention to the sites, the whatever night out at the bar thing that's being organized, right? I don't care about what shopping and thrift storing and knickknacking. Like, great. If that's somebody's drawing attention to go to the convention, God bless them, right? But standing around and talking about our problems in a parking lot is far and away the thing that is my draw there, right? It's hanging out with, with the community of car owners, right? And shooting the shit and catching up. And now it's become, sure, it's talk about the cars, and now it's, hey, how's your kid, right? Is your kid driving? Like, that's the next question that we're going to be fielding, right? My kids are already doing the raffle in the driveway, going like, well, okay, I'm calling dibs on this one, and then I want that one, and then Dad, this one needs an engine in it before I hit 16, and like those are realities that those.
But
20 years
that's
ago,
the beautiful,
on my radar.
and you're 100% right. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the community. We all kind of grow as a family as a whole, and I mean, it just kind of it blows my mind that we've all kind of, in a sense, grown up, because I would have never thought that would have happened
Well,
to
it's
me
like-
and most of us. So, but go ahead.
I was thinking about it too. You're talking about how through the screen names we talked about earlier with the forums and stuff. It's like we've been able to monitor each other's personal growth in one way or another. It's like, 20 years later, you're like, oh, look, Promiscuous Z did get his law degree.
Oh yeah, and he goes, Jeff did finally get through that surgery. I see hot 68.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
But I mean, kind of going back to it, some of the relationships and the friendships that I've met through, and I'm going to name drop it again, but TT.net and the Z30 community, and it can apply for the Z30 community, there's Z32 community, but it can really go across anything, any of the Z platforms, any of the other Nissan models. And that's one of the beautiful things about what me and Mike did about this podcast. We knew that we weren't going to get 4 billion subscribers, but the thing is, it was all about the
just write
quality
a bot for that, dude. You're not applying yourself.
But the thing is, we wanted a podcast that was really catered to the uber nerd, the uber fanatic. And at the end of the day, when we do this event, I mean, we do these podcasts, we bring on folks like yourself that are just, the nerddom is at another level that can't be matched. And the stories and the insights that you get from something like this are just next level. And I want to say thank you again for Bernie for coming on, talking about this. And honestly, dude, I want to have you on all the freaking time, because I know we have 4 billion stories that we can talk about, because I know 4 billion stories on you, and I'm like, and I know we can have an uber amount of fun and road trips, and quite honestly, man, I just want to say thank you for all the years for helping me personally out, helping the overall group with our cars, man, because honestly, I've said this before, and I really think that a guy like you, when he shows up to a convention, should be up to his neck in Shiner. By the way, that's what he drinks. He should be up to his neck in Shiner and free Shiners. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the free shiners when you get to the bar, a man like you should never have to pay for a beer because you ultimately fixed an EFI harness situation. You ultimately told me that you know what that flow rate for that fuel pump was garbage, and you know you did all the tech work and you saved me hours of time. So guess what, man?
All right.
As always, I owe you a beer when I see you
Yeah,
next time.
man,
That's
this has
fine.
been. Oh man, this has been awesome, man. Yeah, you're right. Same here. And I think y'all mentioned it earlier too about just making friends, getting together. It's putting in the time that helps build these relationships and that just endure the rest of your life. It's this is a great example of it. I'm really again, this holds the record not only for most time but also in my heart. Just because.
Oh, jeez.
Aw. No, seriously, man.
Lashmutt,
This has been
killing
awesome,
me.
dude.
Jesus
Killing me.
Christ, Bernie. This is a green noob if I ever heard one.
Yeah, I'm a noob.
Just-
God damn.
Can I
leather up, noob.
can I
Just
share one quick memory that I sort of think like kind of encapsulates a lot of this for us.
go ahead.
And we'll definitely blow up your timeline here, right? But
Whatever.
so, and if Dennis is listening, if he could find a picture of it, I feel like fucking Rogan on the podcast. Hey man, look that thing up real quick. But no, the at the convention in 18 was that Texas again? But
17 was Austin, 18 was Atlanta.
all right, sorry. So Austin, the convention he put on, which was epically nice, and I had a great time at. But at the end of that, like in the last night or the night before last, and I know it repeated on the last night, we got together in like in the hotel side hallway, right? Like the official like carryings on
Yeah.
we're at the bar, but like the TTNet guys and some of the guys from Japan decided that
We found a corner.
we found our corner, right? And we got there, and there was like there's a like a low table and like four kind of puffy chairs around it, and there was
It's a
way too
smoking
many,
chair at best.
yeah,
It's just that was it.
and there was too many people for those four chairs, right? And there was this awkward moment where it's us and like Damon was there and the some of the guys from Datsun Sports Car Club were there.
Tetsu was there.
Tatsu and Hideo.
Marita-san was there,
Yep.
and it was the first time he'd ever kind of hung out on stateside at like any type of pseudo TT.net thing. His mind was blown. Man, I can't remember who was all there. We had a blast, dude.
But the best part about it is this sort of hodgepodge group of people roll in and they look down at this and they're like, well, we all kind of want we don't want the convention to end, right? We're having a good time. So we're looking for the after party to the closing ceremony after party, right? Mm-hmm. And we settle upon this end of this hallway where there's this, scrap of carpet and this square table that's low rise. And so what we end up doing is we push the chairs out of the way because there's too many people and not enough chairs.
Yeah.
And we kick off our shoes and all the Japanese guys like sync up and they know what the drill is, right? Like as soon as they see the like shoes come off and get lined up at the edge of the carpet, they're down, right? And so they kick off their shoes and they said like, all right, we're going to party here. Like this is all right. We're going to do this Japanese style now. Right. And so we had the spontaneous after party in the, side parking lot hallway on the floor around a table. And suddenly everybody that's walking in or walking out is like, hey, this is the cool kids table all of a sudden, right? Like, what are you guys doing? We're smuggling shots down from our rooms. Anybody who's got half of a bottle left is, bringing it down. The snack packs are coming out. Are we ordering a pizza to a hallway? Is there an address for this, like, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And it just became very communal. It became incredibly friendly, incredibly fast, and it was just a perfect moment of
steering wheel. Steering
You did it,
wheel.
you got it?
Steering wheel.
Yeah, we're
Give
waiting
it
on
to
it.
me.
I'm wait. You gotta share your screen. There you
Booyakasha.
go. There you go.
But look at that, right?
Oh, look at that. Scott Hibbler. I knew I forgot somebody, dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
but that's Russell's there and Shanna's there and
Damon,
Brady,
Shanna's there.
right?
Awesome.
But that was not
Dave.
in a designated area. We were like
Dave
blocking the
Mudbutt
fire,
Hewitt.
right?
Oh, just
Yeah. Speaking of people with Z tattoos, you got Hebler there, right? But
Hibbler. Oh, dude, hardcore.
listen,
Yeah.
you know what the best thing about Scott is? I've known him so long that the first time I actually met him in person, he'd already posted a picture of that big Z32 tattoo, you know, the massive one he has,
Yeah,
right?
he's got it.
Okay.
And so he was in town and he's like, hey, listen, the thing is, my dad doesn't know about the tattoo, so don't say anything, right? Like, he was that young and it was that fresh, right? He was willing to post pictures of it on the internet, but his parents hadn't seen it yet, right?
Oh wow!
And he's like, so yeah, just it's cool, just don't say anything about that, right? I'm like, all right. if that's where we're starting off at, right? But it was perfect, right? And more people kept coming down, and more bottles kept arriving, and it was. We were standing in security trying to get on the plane the next day, and we were completely, never mind hungover. We were still drunk. I wasn't hungover until I landed in Virginia the next, but like it was such a great night and such a sort of, moment in time of like, these are all people from essentially all over the world, from all parts of the US. And we have fundamentally one car in common. And it just keeps bringing us together over and over and over, right?
Yeah,
and keeps me at least wanting to travel to see your dumbasses in person, right? But
yeah, yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about all this. It's just the amount of love I have for you guys, and the brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, but the community that kind of came from this. It's just it's unbelievable, and the fact that it travels across oceans, to connect that. And so when you see people you haven't seen for years, and they're on a freaking another continent, and we advertise also for this podcast to like the UK, to Canada, and here stateside, we have our own community, but the community is strong and always has been. Mm-hmm. But the UK has a really strong connection. The Australian guys, those guys are hard, like super hard Z32 dudes that just said, screw it. We're just, and they're rough, and they keep their community tight. I mean, you've got the UK guys that really have just rusted out beater Z32s that are just trying to keep them alive. Kudos to everybody that's out there. If you own a 300ZX, I don't care what continent you're on, what freaking dusty side of the planet that you're on, know that there is love out there for you. There's forums that are out there. Continue to support those forums that are out there. TT.net, they have a donate site. I don't think money's an issue anymore. It's not, but continue to at least send an email with some love, and continue to support your forums. At the end of this all, we would be nowhere without the collective love and continuation of keeping that information out there. And then freaking go to an event. You'd be surprised how much you will find a like-minded individual at an event that is going to turn out to be a freaking brother, a rollout Sons of Anarchy, like I would die for this type of dude, and it's just it goes with that. When I met Mike, he was fresh and green as can be, and now I roll with this fool, like if
now he's a broken geriatric man, but
now he's destroyed. He's only 23. Look how destroyed he is. And that's it. This Z32 life is hard. You know what I mean? But Just, but at the end of the day, that's the takeaway. I mean, can continue to support your community, start those small groups, and keep those cars alive. Continue to support those Z32 dealers that are out there that sell those parts. With that being said, hey Bernie, I know you're in a small area of the world. You're in North Virginia. If somebody needed to
You're the
contact
only
you,
person that calls it that, by the way.
Oh yeah.
North
Nova?
Virginia. Yeah, it's northern.
Well, hold on. Let's test Mike. Mike, where are you going to be here soon?
I'm going to be in Raleigh. Is that what it is?
Just-
Raleigh.
Close enough.
I don't even want to.
Close enough. Yeah, Raleigh. Yeah.
When they pitchfork you when you get there, you'll know you're getting it.
Yeah.
So for anybody that is in around that area in North Virginia,
Northern.
and you need a
Northern
Z32
Virginia.
tech or a guru,
Yeah.
Bernie, how are people reaching out to you if you want to talk to one of the Z32 gurus? Bernie, how would they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm still got the same email address I've had for a million years, so we can maybe post that up if you want. But
Put it
that's
up.
fine
Put it
too.
up.
Yeah.
But,
I've got a few of them here. I did have. This is Bernie Bilski. What is this? I want to make sure it's the right one. I can add them. What the other
That's
ones
fine
are?
right there. That's fine.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you click on any of those links, there's an email address at the bottom of them, right?
All right.
So,
What's the email address for those that are clicking on from another part of the world?
BernieBilski@cox.net. Will find me.
And that's
right there.
COX for the
Yep.
perverts in the room.
Yep.
COX.net. And then, I mean, reach out to him. If you can't find it, I can guarantee you can message Bernie and he will find it for you, because I call him at all the weirdest times of the day when I need some kind of odd information checked or fact checked. That's what we do. And if you are a Z32 fanatic, get on twinturbo.net and get your daily crack. Get on the site, continue to support it, continue to pay it forward with adding in information to that. And then, this has been a great episode. I want to thank all the people that have had an opportunity to stay on with us as long as we have, because this is typical TT.net fashion. We rock it till the last call of the bar comes on.
Yeah.
And Bernie, I want to invite you back, man. I
I'll
mean,
be
I know
there.
we
Let
got
me
a
know when
billion
you want
other
it.
stories to come back. Maybe we'll bring on your duo, your Jay and Silent Pop partner, Mr. Clatter, if he hasn't completely sold out his Z32 roots these days.
Nah, he's good. He's
Okay.
he's buried in a Land Rover project, but his heart's in the right place.
His heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being on with us as late as we've been on. Ion, Jamie, Sean, Dennis, Mr. Papa Giorgio, Andrew, all the old school TC.net guys, everybody. Thanks for nerding out with us as long as we have.
Yes.
I just want to give a pretty much a big fat communal, just because we're all dork. Thanks for hanging out and adding to the dorkdom. So yeah, it is.
All right, glad to be here.
Rick.
I'll gladly come back if you want me to. So.
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
you aren't banned.
We got to do that. We got to do that.
But thanks again for everybody. Great episode number 42. Do I have anything? What you got in that glass, Bern?
What do you got there, man?
I got nothing. I got this, not even my brand. I stole it from my wife. Yeah.
You don't get the Polish Springs no more?
I don't know. I don't know why there's Deer Park in my house.
Next time we'll separate the color of M&Ms like you requested. Yeah.
No green in the green room.
No green. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. Just until then, we'll do say kampai though. Yeah.
And Bernie, stay on with us afterwards, guys. Love you. Thanks for being on with us. Thanks for having for making another awesome episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Till next time, we'll see you. Remember to subscribe and support.
Yes, thanks so much. Kampai, guys. Talk to you soon.
Sayonara.
Yeah.